戦争は変わった。一つの時代が終わり、俺たちの戦争は終わった。
War has changed. It's no longer about nations, ideologies, or ethnicity. It's an endless series of proxy battles fought by mercenaries and machines. War and its consumption of life has become a well-oiled machine. War has changed. Verified soldiers carry algorithmic arms, manipulate social influence, AI enhance and regulate their timelines. Memetic control, information control, emotion control, battlefield control. Everything is monitored and kept under control. War has changed. The age of deterrence has become the age of control, all in the name of averting catastrophe from weapons of mass destruction. And he who controls the battlefield controls history. War has changed. And when the battlefield is under total control, war becomes routine.
Think outside the cage.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is May 18th, 2026. We are live to tape on episode 941. And today, Apocrypha of the Method. And signing on from Off the Grid, Razzle Dazzle, I'm your best buddy Basil, and you are not crazy.
And my name is Gonz, at Face Like the Sun, director of the Age of Deceit films, the author of Prophecy Without Panic, Recovering the Patterns Behind Biblical Prophecy, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ, live to tape from the metaverse to bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. It is Monday.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
Gary, what day is it? Ow, Monday.
My Canary Cry calendar says that it was the year 1994, the first GMO food approved by the FDA. So that's marked on the Canary Cry calendar.
Happy
but I think
GMO
more,
Day.
yeah, happy GMO Day. I think more importantly, let's call upon the producers right from the get-go here.
Producers, assemble!
Our good friend Derek Gilbert is at Springfield, Missouri. He posted this image. He looks very distressed. And he has a caption here: I can add bone marrow biopsy to my list of life experiences. I believe he's in recovery. Pray for his recovery. And I had no idea that he was having health issues. But that's out there now. So pray for Derek. We all love Derek. You know, he's done great work.
For those who are just listening, he is in a hospital bed in this image, not just looking distressed, sort of making a
Sure.
face or something. He's in a hospital, posting from a hospital bed. So, yes, we'll keep Derek Gilbert in our prayers. Biopsies of any kind are not fun, not to mention the circumstances that can be distressing that leads to the need for a biopsy. But we'll all be keeping Derek in our prayers, buddy.
Absolutely. And of course, him and Sharon have done a lot. I mean, for me personally, they've been so important in discovering the rabbit trails of UFOs and aliens and paranormal and supernatural and all the different fringe topics that are now so mainstream. You know, they were one of the first people that I found that were approaching the subject from a grounded biblical perspective, something that I still feel like many are missing these days, even though the topics of UFOs and aliens and all these things are in the mainstream coming from a somewhat biblical perspective. But yeah, Derek's a really nice guy. He's been very nice to us and has always been a colleague and a friend. So prayers to you, Derek. Hope you feel better soon.
Yep,
And you're
praying
back
for
at
you, buddy.
Yep.
Yeah, goodness gracious. It's a Monday. We can definitely feel it's a Monday, a very interesting past few days. And today, putting the show together, Guns, of course, we're always paying attention. What needs to go to the show? What's the most important thing? What's the thing that everybody needs to know about? This Monday is all about vibes, man. Just very weird vibes going on. We're going to cover a few things to start off here, but really building a case of vibes for where we're at in the world, which is one of those shows where, sometimes the individual current events, are kind of the important thing, and dissecting the sort of PSYOP or understanding, the messaging or something ahead of time can sort of inoculate us from all sorts of nasty things. And sometimes it's just all about the vibes, man. And for a little bit of background before we jump into our first clip here, it's been an interesting decade and a half for listeners of our show for all sorts of reasons. But the past couple years have been particularly interesting as we sort of saw the wave coming back in about 2023, before anybody bothered to really study it or report it or anything, where the return to at least Christendom, Christianity, started gaining a little bit more steam. And now, depending on where you are, who you are, Christianity has gained a lot of clout lately. A lot of Gen Zs turning back to religion, a lot of mainstream culture. And part of that, not just mainstream culture, of course, because that's its own monster, but part of it is alternative media becoming basically explicitly Christian. And not just, longtime Christian podcasters sort of gaining notoriety and Christianity making it into the spotlight that way, but longtime alternative podcasters, which of course many of them started out in the mainstream, kind of at the flip of a switch in the past year, being like, oh yeah, okay, this show, me as a personality, this is all explicitly Christian now, and we're not going to beat around the bush. We're going to come at topics explicitly from sort of a Christian worldview, as they see it, as they experience it. And of course, a lot of these individuals and these personalities have some very interesting connections to the CIA. And so the Christian PSYOP is something.
That's just coincidence, Basil. There's not a list of, like 50 or 60 people out there right now that either have their own podcasts or have been prominent guests on multiple podcasts that are all just so happens to be ex-CIA or former CIA or no longer with CIA or, just briefly was in the CIA, whatever. It's just coincidence, man. There's no.
We're staying sensitive. We're staying sensitive to the topics, sensitive to the PSYOP. And as we've said many times before, we don't know exactly why this is happening, but it's very suspicious that it's happening. And a couple of maybe the most famous podcasters these days, of course, not to mention Rogan, who has explicitly talked about his own burgeoning Christianity recently, but a couple of the, I would say, even more inflammatory, biggest podcasters in the world. There's a couple of them. We're going to start by talking about Candace Owens, who is a Catholic, or so she claims, and pretty much everything she says, any crazy theory she has, is all sort of surrounding this explicitly Christian language and explicitly Christian theology as she understands it. And there was a new trailer, Gons, dropped.
We need to properly, we don't have a Candace Owens proper jingle, but I think she does deserve one on the show at this point. But we do have some ISOs.
Straight to jail, straight to jail.
I'm going to haunt you. It reeks of an inside job. I'm going to haunt you.
So there you go. There's a little introduction to Candace Owens.
Yeah.
Who was the guest? A trailer? What?
Okay. So she dropped the trailer for her next episode, and I think we should just play the clip. Let's just play the trailer so everybody knows what to keep an eye out for from Candace Owens here coming up.
FBI has had physical possession of Hunter Biden's laptop, which reportedly contains, well, a lot of disturbing material.
You have access to that actual laptop.
A jury found Hunter Biden guilty of 3 felony gun charges.
I said I abide by the jury decision. I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
Oopsies. He lied.
He pardoned a crackhead.
Hunter Biden. Welcome to the Candace Owens show.
I've heard you call me a crackhead many times, and the truth of the matter is I was a crackhead. The quote-unquote laptop, which, by the way, you know what the laptop proved?
That you were a crackhead.
There you go. My marriage fell apart, and it just started a really, really dark cycle. My brother called me and said, this has got to stop. And it forced me into a choice. And the choice was, do I get out of bed and live, or do I die?
DC is corrupt. Politics is corrupt.
But something's changed, Candace. It's not left or right. The DC elite of the left, they crushed my dad because he was never part of that club. He was never part of the Epstein class. You know one thing he didn't do? He didn't greenlight to turn Gaza into a Trump golf course with the maitre d' being Jared Kushner. War in Iran that they started, that every president before him was pressured by the Israelis.
And I do think there was something about the Charlie Kirk assassination that everyone just sort of looked up.
They're the people that Charlie Kirk made. The level of disloyalty or fear, I don't know what it is. And the criticism of you for asking the questions for someone who was like a brother to you, it's like, what the F are you talking about? I listen to you and I go, right on. The Acts of John, there is a thing that Christ says, you must learn to suffer as I do in order to be able not to suffer. And that is the greatest lesson of everything.
Whoa! My mind is blown. What? Hunter Biden, the truth teller.
Got hairy legs. Got hairy legs.
We need to systematically go through one by one of these bombshell claims on this.
Certainly a lot to go through there, but very interesting. You know, it's kind of seems a little random to bring Hunter Biden on really anywhere, because it's not like he's in the news. There's not like a whole lot of hype for Hunter Biden. There hasn't been any new information, and so the timing for bringing Hunter Biden on is honestly kind of weird. It's a little strange, right? Like there isn't some new bombshell. There isn't some new thing. The timing is strictly Candace Owens bringing him on to talk. And it was interesting when it started out. The trailer started out, and it's very crackhead heavy, right? It's very crackhead heavy. You know, you called me a crackhead. Yeah, he's a crackhead.
Yeah, I'm a crackhead.
So,
yeah.
You know, which is an interesting diversion, because honestly, again, according to the laptop, Hunter Biden being a crackhead is like the least interesting, the least illegal thing that appears on the laptop. And they had the nice little clip in there, Hunter Biden saying, you know what the laptop showed? That I was a crackhead. So there's a little, even though it's like kind of giving the impression that it's a confrontation. Candace is confronting him about his sins. The fact that it focuses so heavily on the crackhead bit is actually kind of letting Hunter Biden off the hook. And then it moves to Hunter Biden operating in the storyline of the Epstein class, right? And his whole point is that his father was such a great guy. He wasn't in the left-right paradigm. The Washington elite came after him because he wasn't
not part of the Epstein class, guys. Come on. I mean,
just absolutely ludicrous, an absolute ludicrous message to lead with on this Candace episode, this Candace episode about the corruption of the Biden family, right? And it's right there in the front, the message that Joe Biden was outside the Epstein class. He's outside the left-right paradigm. So sort of even speaking in these conspiracy theory terms, right? So that's really bizarre. And you start to get the feeling like, wait, is Candace Owens coming to the defense of Hunter Biden? Which is not outside of the realm of possibility, because
she's perfect for it. She's the perfect person, the perfect vehicle in alt media podcasting to actually bring a little bit of like clout or something to fix Hunter Biden's image by retelling the story, you know,
she did this
reframing
with,
him.
Harvey Weinstein. She came to the defense of Harvey Weinstein. This is kind of her thing, is she comes to the defense of these, you know, formerly assumed guilty people, or even like actively found guilty in a court of law people, right? And again, it's all very strange unless you've been paying attention, whether directly or through shows like ours, that she's actually become a bit of a hero on the left. The left loves Candace, and if you don't get this impression, then you're not paying attention, because it's true. Both Tucker and Candace have become these sort of intermediate darlings between those on the left and those on the right. Of course, they've made a lot of enemies on the right, particularly around their thoughts and actions regarding Trump. So this is kind of who they are, right? Okay, so we get this kind of fringy kind of conspiracy defense of the story isn't what you think it is, where Biden is actually a rogue actor fighting against the Epstein elite, blah, blah, blah. And
yeah, but the next one, no, we can't go there yet, because the next line, because this is like a stack, you know, they're building this case. Yeah, the crackhead, yeah, the laptop. Then, oh, you know, my dad wasn't part of the Epstein class. They went after him, you know, so he's separating himself from the whole Epstein thing. And then, oh man, those Israelis, those Zionists, those guys are evil. I mean, that you have to have that as part of the whole construction of this whole thing, because
one of the primary reasons why a certain aspect of the left loves Candace so much. That's the real splitting point.
Yes. So this is a major pillar in sort of the narrative construct for people that are, and ironically, it is sort of being swept back into the left as far as like this right-left paradigm, even though, you know, Hunter here says, oh, he's not right or left, talking about his father, Joe Biden. But really and I saw this coming from years ago, when you start talking about Zionism or calling out Zionism or the crimes of the military intelligence of Israel or whatever it might be, you're automatically labeled, especially the people who support Israel, you're labeled, oh, are you a leftist? Are you pro-Democrat? Are you a progressive? Like, are you pro-Palestine, which means you're Democrat? You know, so for people that cannot think beyond the right-left paradigm, you do get labeled left. So for a while, it looked like maybe the conservative group was going to be able to address this topic from within, but certainly it split conservatives. That was the topic. Zionism was the topic that really started to separate the Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes and all these people from the rest of the, I guess, larger conglomerate that is conservatism. And now they're being sort of embraced by the left. You know, you can't do anything. We can't do something other than a right-left paradigm for, I guess, most of people in America. But anyway, I digressed. I just wanted to throw it is a major part of this construct. But yes, there's one more big one.
So like you say, the hot topics, each being sort of pinged or addressed in the trailer, but presenting sort of a weird, again, if your thoughts about Candace, if your understanding about who Candace is stuck in even the Candace of like 8 months ago, right? You're totally separated from where she's at now and what she actually represents in trying to understand the culture. And then at the end of it, again, it kind of fades out and then it fades back, and then it moves into Christianity, quote unquote, because Hunter Biden of Hunter Biden fame says in the Acts of John, right? He says in the Acts of John, and he makes this reference to John saying, you know, if you suffer, then you can't stop suffering if you don't suffer, like something like this, like sort of paraphrasing, you know, of course, some phrases of Jesus about suffering, some phrases of Paul, you know, take joy in your suffering, count it all joy, this sort of stuff. But if you actually listen, and I had to listen to it again because he says a couple things that are actually kind of bizarre, that kind of felt weird. And the first one was, he talks about the Acts of John. And I go, the Acts of John? What is the Acts of John? Is he saying Acts? Like it immediately pings like, oh, he's trying to talk Christian-y, but he's not actually saying the right words, right? Because he says the Acts of John, you might be thinking, okay, he's talking about in the book of Acts, right? Maybe something John did in the book of Acts, which I had never heard anything sort of referred to that way. And I go, okay, maybe he's talking about John, right? Maybe he's talking about the Gospel of John, but he's calling it the Acts of John. And I'm like, come on, Hunter, you got to do better than this. Well, turns out the Acts of John is an actual book. And the Acts of John has its own Wikipedia page. And let me read you a little bit about the Acts of John. The Acts of John refers to a collection of stories about John the Apostle that began circulating in written form as early as the 2nd century AD. Okay, so kind of around biblical times. Let's see. Translations of the Acts of John in modern languages have been reconstructed by scholars from a number of manuscripts of later date. The Acts of John are generally classified as New Testament apocrypha. So he is correctly citing a book that he is bringing his like Christian, quote unquote, Christian influence to a quote unquote Christian podcaster who's so explicitly Catholic and Christian in all of the way that she describes herself and the things going on. And it turns out that the Acts of John is, again, explicitly part of the Gnostic heresy. It is New Testament Apocrypha, was not included in the canonization of the Bible, and turns like Hunter Biden's getting his esoteric Gnosticism on, Gons. Oh, isn't that nice?
It's Christian, though. It's Christian. Hey, he's a Christian now, right?
As Christianity. What a good guy.
Yeah. So
and there's some weird stuff in the Acts of John, like all the Apocrypha, right? And especially like all of the Gnostic Apocrypha it's filled with like really like offbeat stuff. If you're familiar with the Bible and you're sort of mature in your faith with understanding what the Bible's all about, and you know your real basic core theology of salvation and things like that, you go and you read really any of the Apocrypha, and it's really wild. It's really out there. And it becomes apparent, why the church fathers didn't include it in canonization. Now, of course, there's other Apocrypha that it's not like you're not allowed to read the Apocrypha. Okay. You can read it.
Go ahead. Yeah.
That's fine.
I understand there's a reason why they were left out of canon.
We get into the book of Enoch, there's a lot of stuff in the Apocrypha. It's not off limits. However, if you're trying to look, he quotes the Acts of John, he quotes the Apocrypha, really, and all he's trying to do is give a theological basis for suffering, right? In his context, all this stuff he suffered as a crackhead and his family suffered for trying to fight the Epstein class or whatever. And he's giving a theological message of like, hey, suffering, it happens. There's no way around it. And we have God, and he could have taken the verse, a dozen other verses.
There's like whole books, like the book of Job. I mean, he could have gone so many places if he wanted to make that suffering point.
It's very canonical scripture theological point could have given to talk about suffering, but he specifically pulls from the Apocrypha. And bajillions of people, we know there's a lot of new Christians out there, right? And to a brand new, it took me a second to figure out what the heck he was talking about. But to a bajillion new Christians, they're going to hear what he said and be like, oh, wow, he's a Christian now.
He's a Christian,
not even, it's not going to ping in their head that the Acts of John isn't the book of Acts or isn't the book of John. And this paraphrase about suffering isn't in the Bible, but it's going to sort of place him in this Christian category.
Not to be confused with Acts of John in Rome, which is a 4th century Christian apocryphal text. So, yeah, I mean, when you get into scholarly stuff, there's a lot of labels that overlap. But you had mentioned how some of the stuff in the Acts of John is offbeat, but I would argue maybe it's on beat, because one of the things that's the most popular out of the Acts of John is the dance of Jesus. So allegedly in the later chapters like 94 to 102 or something of the Acts of John, the story goes, it actually outlines or retells the Last Supper story. And part of what Jesus and the disciples did leading up to the arrest and, after the Last Supper was that Jesus gathered all the disciples into a circle, told them to hold hands and dance while he sings a mystical hymn. And so here are some of the lines. They progressively get more mystical as it goes on here. Grace dances, I would pipe. Dance, ye all. Amen. The whole universe belongs to the dancer. He who dances not knows not what comes to pass. I would flee and I would say, Amen. I would adorn and I would be adorned. Amen. I would be united and I would unite. Amen. So again, it's leading up to the crucifixion of Jesus. It's this sort of mystical chant and dance that the disciples and Jesus, a little ritual, a little Burning Man dance session or something.
Totally.
And the other part of it that's very well known from the scholars know about from the Acts of John is this idea. I think it's pronounced docetism, which is that Jesus is sort of two parts, and he's got his spiritual body and his physical body. And part of the text explains how Jesus and his spiritual body talked to John on the Mount of Olives before the crucifixion. And
it's part of the core Gnostic, and I've referenced this 1,000 times before, so old listeners, you'll know what we're talking about here. But one of the core heresies of the Gnostics that has made its way into especially evangelical American Christianity is this focus on the separation between the spirit and the material, and the material being evil, the spiritual being all good. And this is a lot of that kind of talk will feel very natural to American evangelicals, maybe not knowing the history of the Gnostic heresy. And it's still a very contentious conversation to have. A lot of people hearing me say this right now will be like, this is the first time they're ever hearing that this separation of spirit and materia is a classic Gnostic heresy, because it is kind of this first step into Gnosticism. And it goes a lot of the core theology for Jesus not being like a cohesive, both 100% man and 100% God, because the Gnostics kind of chop Jesus up into his kind of constituent parts, right? And this sort of spiritual form separated from Jesus's material form, where his material form is not perfection, is not God, versus his spiritual form being, sort of course, good and perfect. But that's not how the true theology of the canonical biblical accounts aren't so clear about this sort of thing. I've talked about this 1,000 times, not going to bore anybody with it, but it's one thing that really bugs a lot of Christians, especially if you're sort of rooted in sort of a Sunday morning American evangelicalism. It can be quite divisive. But for the Catholic Candace Owens, who leans very heavily on her classic Catholic theology, a lot of her credibility comes from her sort of theological stances on things for some people. And to sort of inject this Christian conversation into what amounts to a defense of Hunter Biden, and for him to just straight up be reading from the Gnostic texts of the Apocrypha to sort of justify his suffering is just very bizarre. But you think about it for a second, you go, oh, of course it is. We've been asking ourselves for now years, what in the world is going on with these sort of Christian psyops in America? And we're going to get much deeper into it here in the next couple stories. But the fact that her dropping this trailer at the same time as this Tucker Carlson episode we're going to talk about in a moment sort of solidifies the Christian psyop being played out right in front of our faces. It's answering a lot of questions for me. I'll say that much.
Yeah. Well, not surprising, I would say. I mean, there was always something off about the whole takeover of alt media from the beginning, and I think a lot of people latched on to the Candace Owenses and the Tucker Carlsons, and they still, whatever, they still do. But there was a honeymoon period, I would say, for conservatives, and then the Zionist issue popped up, and I feel like that really was the beginning of splitting this group up, divide and conquer kind of thing. And then
the Charlie Kirk too,
I
which
was
is
about to say the Charlie Kirk
connected,
murder,
right, to the Israel
really
thing.
just put everything into hyperdrive, and here we are a few
Which
months
is where
later.
she gets a lot of her leftist fans as well, is the Charlie
Yeah.
Kirk thing. And it's hilarious. In the trailer, you have Hunter Biden being like, "You're right, Candace.
I know.
can't
Yeah,
believe
I
that."
listened to you, and you're making sense. Oh, good. You're
Mhm.
making sense to a crackhead. That's a. I'm sorry. I should not say that. Hunter Biden is no longer a crackhead. He's a mere artist. He's an
No,
artist.
that's not how addiction works. Once an addict, you're always an addict. You got to be careful.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Okay. Well, I'll let Hunter Biden define himself in the interview. So we're not putting any labels on the
Oh,
guy.
trust me. He defines himself in the trailer of the interview. He's very clear about his crack addictness.
He does. But yes, I think this will. So this is supposed to drop on Thursday. So maybe you'll be live with the Clubhouse, and people can call in with their immediate reactions from the bombshell interview. This could also be. I wonder if they've been holding on to this as far as Candace goes for a time when she starts losing a little bit of traction, a little bit of popularity or something like that. You gotta have a zinger, and get it in there. And maybe it doesn't even get as big as people expect. I'm seeing a lot of this is going to melt down the internet. And I mean, the effect of it is probably mostly done today on the trailer, not so much the full interview. I mean, people might pick some things out.
As we've identified before too, Gons, it's not necessarily just about the Candace interview, because we've seen this multiple times before, and we've pointed this out, and we've been like, I don't know why this is the case, but it is the case. And it's been about a half a dozen times now where in the same week, you'll have Candace, you'll have Tucker, you'll have Sean Ryan, you'll have, the biggest of these sort of new class of podcasters. They will all drop an episode giving basically the same message all within days or a week of each other, right?
Who used to do that? I mean, there used to be like a pattern of that happening in some other context.
Almost like a Project Mockingbird. Only
just mainstream media in general. Have you those parrot edits where they're all saying the exact same line over and over again? Same thing started happening to alt media. I don't know. It's been happening for a while, but certainly more noticeable in the last maybe 6 months or so.
And that's not to say, what I'm not pointing out here is that Tucker will post a Hunter Biden and Sean Ryan will post a Hunter Biden and Candace. Hunter Biden's not the topic here. What the topic is, this small step between a character, a podcaster who has set themselves up as an explicitly Christian influence. Candace, Tucker, Sean Ryan, gotta keep an eye out for Sean Ryan this week. This class where they're like, hey, this is it now. We're explicitly Christian. If you're Christian, if you're not Christian, let me tell you about Christ. This is exactly who we are now. And of course, they're all connected to the CIA. So the topic that's being delivered this week is not necessarily Hunter Biden, but I believe it is this small step, and it may not seem small to us. I think it should. I think it is explicitly a small step, but this small step between Christianity and the Gnostic heresy, right?
Yeah.
Because if you've been paying attention again for a decade and a half or so, you'll know implicitly, and you'll feel, and you've seen it 1,000 times before, the extremely small space between solid Christianity, solid Orthodox theology, and heresy is so small that they're often mixed up. And
they overlap quite a bit.
And when you get a really solid mix between Christianity and Gnosticism, what it starts to really look like is New Age, right? That's kind of the the straw on the camel's back that flips something from sort of a solid Christianity into a new age is this sprinkle of Gnosticism. And just so I don't bury the lead, what I think we're going to see as we check this new story is, we've been wondering, we've been curious, we've been weirded out by this mass movement into Christendom the past couple of years. And the question is why and where is it going? And it could be that we've been watching, again, old school fringe internet, podcasts, Age of Deceit days, what's
the Derek Gilberts of the world?
Derek Gilberts, the Hollywood Exposed. What's been the number one most cohesive message from the fringe Christian space in the past 15 years is Hollywood decoding the Gnostic messages in Hollywood, whether it's TV shows, movies, award shows, rituals, a bajillion.
Yeah, you slap the word exposed into any mainstream thing, and you got 50,000 views on your YouTube channel. That was sort of a known tactic for several years,
of decoding these mainstream pieces of media and picking out the Gnostic heresies in them. And the whole point of this was, hey, they are subconsciously programming esoteric, occult, and Gnostic theology, not even into religion, into mainstream media, into the subconscious of millions of people who might not even believe in the supernatural, and yet it's right there. And so you have this whole group of people who were grown up and trained on the mainstream, right? Not religious, not supernatural minded, whatever, but programmed with the Gnostic messages for years and years and years. Then we come into this short period, the past few years, where a lot of those people find Christianity or find Jesus, right? And there's differences, but in general, Christendom, a bunch of new people moved from mainstream materialism, anti-supernaturalism into Christianity. And it's been a couple of years. And now what we see from these, again, big time CIA, quote unquote, Christian podcasters is this introduction of Gnosticism back into the Christian conversation. So you've got a huge group of people going from subconsciously Gnostically trained, maybe finding Jesus, maybe finding Christianity. There is a difference between those two things. And now being reintroduced to the conscious theology of Gnosticism through these quote unquote Christian podcasters, right? So taking this small step into these Gnostic heresies, now that they have this, they're a couple years into this new Christianity of theirs, bringing this Gnostic subconscious training from before their time to the surface and integrating it with their sort of new Christianity. It's very interesting.
It almost if you're a social engineer, it makes a lot of sense. When they were pushing this stuff with a lot of the Gnosticism, the mystery religions, and all these things, it was packaged in what's more openly Satanism, more satanic and more dark sort of imagery and the more grotesque things. And that all kind of came to a head with the whole Pizzagate thing. And I feel like that era, it was almost the end of an era. It's like, okay, the satanic thing has gotten out of hand. And that was the vehicle to bring Gnosticism or the mystical, spiritual worldview to the masses. Well, at a certain point, people are going to reject that because it's gory and, it's not family friendly and all these things. So the visceral response to a outwardly and openly satanic society is for people to go back to church, go find faith. And we've seen that it's worked in this last 10 years. We've seen a lot of people go back to church. They want tradition. They want something that's more real, that's not social media fluff or slop or something like that. They want something that's a little bit more solid and traditional. But if you're a social engineer and you know that's going to happen, it's almost like, okay, the open Satanism door can only bring in so many people. If we want to get the masses, if we want to get that next generation, we got to have that revival, quote unquote. I'm putting air quotes up, a revival in a sense to get everybody into this one room of Christendom or Christianity, like cultural Christianity. I'm not even talking about, individual salvation with people following Jesus and saying Jesus is Lord and Savior. Certainly that includes a large group of these people, but just as a sociological view of people that are christened or in Christendom culturally. Get as many people into that as possible, and then you can start trickling in the mysticism from that door instead of the Satanism door, and a lot more people are going to take it, much easier because, hey, it's under the house of God, right? We're under the house of God, so hey, let's just go ahead and the Acts of John, sure, yeah, why not? I mean, it's about John. It's about Acts, right? It sounds biblical, whatever. It's talking about Jesus. Oh, he danced. Pretty cool. Sweet. He's a dancer. I guess he was raving with his his disciples or whatever. But this also makes sense that, Anna Paulina Luna, a congressman or congresswoman, recently saying, read the book of Enoch, because Enoch is that perfect little bridge where it's like first Enoch, chapters maybe 5 to 17 or something, a little chunk of first Enoch is so informative for Christians and believers who are thinking about the Bible, studying the Bible. They want to know more about the Bible. If they want to understand the cultural context of the ancient Near East, the Old Testament, and what's inevitably became what Jesus did leading up to the cross in the New Testament, his whole ministry, that part of Enoch is very helpful in helping us understand. It's not canon, but it really does fill some gaps that you might have if you're studying the Bible by itself and you don't have any cultural references of the time that those people are around. Well, great. First Enoch is a great tool for that. Much like, Josephus is usually often quoted as that's not even extra biblical. It's just a historian, a Jewish historian from Jesus's day, talking about, hey, there was a guy who's, he started Christianity. People liked him. They considered him the Messiah. And interestingly enough, Josephus also talked about the giant bones that were on display.
Well, the interesting thing about first Enoch, and this is where it kind of gets very subtle when it comes to the Apocrypha, because somebody might say, well, if Enoch has something useful in the Apocrypha, then why not in these other
Why not
things?
everything else? Exactly.
So
it's like that bridge to connect it to the dark side.
The difference, with the book of First Enoch is that it's, I believe, the only piece of the Apocrypha that is referenced in canon. You've got the quotes being canonized in the Bible, taken from Enoch explicitly. So while Enoch is not canon, it is referenced in the Bible, which gives the opportunity to say, okay, what's actually in here? What's being referenced? And this is, of course, where a lot of the theology of the Watchers and the extended
the Nephilim, all that. We'll get into some of that in a second.
Very common. But so that's why, the book of Enoch is a little bit of a different story than like the Acts of John, because there's nobody
but here's what I was
in the Bible saying, like, remember the Acts of John? You should go check that out. It's got some great stuff in it.
Well, here's where the book, when we say the book of Enoch, again, it's sort of like you got to know what you're talking about, because I kept saying first Enoch. And the reason why is because second Enoch was written about the same time Acts of John was written. If I'm not mistaken, it was like 100 years or so after Christ. So it's that same period. And that book is a lot more Gnostic. And then third John is even more, it's like 400, 500 years afterwards. And that thing is, it's super Gnostic at that point. So even if you say book of Enoch, there's first, second, third Enoch. If you're reading the whole thing, again, it's only the first Enoch, a portion of it that really is referenced in scripture. The rest of it is later date. It's Gnostic. It falls in. So it's a perfect vehicle to introduce the masses, not to the Nephilim stuff necessarily. I mean, that's kind of like a byproduct of this maybe. And it helps with the narrative of the UFO stuff, but it does make sense. It's like, okay, why are they releasing the UFO files at this time? When there's a revival, quote unquote, of young people returning to faith. Well, perfect. We get the UFO topic to draw a lot of believers in. And then you get the book of Enoch as sort of this book of explanations, right? And then it draws out from there. And then you have this clear path for these young believers who may not know any better to fall into mystical teachings or mysticism or Gnosticism more specifically in droves and go that direction instead of staying with the biblical canon. Because quite frankly, if you're just sticking with the Bible, that's boring, right? And it's like, it's boring. We already know about the Bible. Yeah. What other stuff is there? And it's enticing. It tickles people's ears. And so I think it's even more nefarious in some ways that this thing that we're talking about here and this movement and this sort of culling of the young believers seeking truth to harvest them through the topic of UFOs, and with that, in parallel with the topic of the Nephilim and the Enoch and all this stuff, and draw them away from solid foundational biblical truths that are there and kind of push them into the mysticism and the Gnosticism. It's almost worse than like doing an openly satanic type of thing, because at least with the openly satanic stuff, it's more like obvious. It's more like in your face sort of evil. It's much like the analogy I've made before with China. It's like in some ways, hey, at least China's open and they're like, hey, we're communists. In America, it's like we're constitutional America, and it's like, yes, that's true, but also if you kind of look at the structure of the corporations and the governments and their partnership and stuff, starts looking a lot more sort of socialist and communist. Yeah. It's not exactly the same, I get it, but it's sort of that marketing, is different for the different generations and stuff. So I think it's more nefarious.
We're gonna get more into Enoch and aliens here in a little bit. And yeah, it's very interesting. It's answering a lot of questions that we've had over the past couple of years. Yeah. Like, what in the world? What exactly is going on here? And of course, as we suspected, it's very clever. It's very elegant, and it's the fear is that it. They do it any other way? This is the CIA, the social engineers.
They're good at what they do. They're very good at what they do with their social engineering.
Interesting, you bring up the Satanism because. Who else dropped an episode this week? Starting off the episode with Mr. Tucker Carlson.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. Evil people do evil things purely for the dark joy of being evil. Evil. Go eat each other. That's the Tucker Carlson program.
Did you do a Nephilim update? Another one?
Sure, why not?
Nephilim update.
Now, dropped this morning is a at least dropped on the podcast version this morning. It may have been on X earlier, but is a Tucker Carlson episode with Sean Stone, which is the son of Roger Stone. Now, I had
not Roger Stone, Oliver Stone, the director.
Oliver Stone, right? Which I had not. Apparently, this guy's been out there doing stuff for quite some time. I had never seen him, but he talks about like being on Alex Jones back in 2012. So apparently this guy's.
I definitely remember Alex Jones doing that interview or something.
Doing Sean Stone, yeah.
And
it's very interesting. Tucker Carlson being another example of these guys who suddenly came out as like, I'm super Christian, so all the Christians, and it's easy to make fun of Tucker Carlson for a lot of reasons. A lot of people get bugged by his sort of confidence, similar to Hunter Biden. Kind of talking about the acts of John. Tucker Carlson, as is his job, talk very confidently, misquoting scripture, sort of being very confident with his theological applications to world events and things like that. But he had this fella, Sean Stone. Now, I'm about 3/4 of the way through the whole thing. But this Sean Stone fella, I don't know where exactly you want to start, but right off the bat, the alarm bells went off because he started this whole episode centers around stuff that has been, a piece of our culture and the basis of our genre for many, many years. It was this first, people have noticed Tucker Carlson kind of dabbling in what was previously called fringe Christianity. He's a couple of weeks ago finally comes out explicitly, talks about the Nephilim. This kind of
it's been a few months, but let me just read the timestamps because they're sort of like chapter titles. We won't go through all of it, but just give you a flavor of what this conversation was like, broken up here. The very first, right from the get-go, why do leaders commune with the supernatural? Okay. All right. We've been talking about the supernatural for a long time. That's good. Great. Bring that topic to the masses. Tucker, good job. Next section, demonology, rituals, and demonic possession. Again. All right. Very, I think, appropriate. Next section, what Masonry is and fallen angels. Huh. Okay. All right. Next section, the Book of Enoch, the Nephilim, and adrenochrome.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Next section, Sean's phone calls from demons. All right. What feeds demons and the empire of fear?
Ooh.
Can nations make deals with the supernatural?
Mm-hmm.
The spiritual economy of evil.
Uh-huh.
Where does this put the United States? The Pentagon and the power of symbolism. I said I wasn't going to read them all, but I might as well because they're all like, we're almost at the end here. The darkness of Hollywood and pointless wars. Okay, so we're doing the exposed again. Expose Hollywood. Yeah, 2011. Let's go. Social media is designed to inspire fear and hate. Okay, well, I mean, that one feels a little, I mean, it's still like 10 years old.
Keep moving. We're almost done here. Let's finish the list.
AI, UFOs, and the war on terror. Those in Powers' obsession with genetics. Why is this all happening at once?
I mean, if this is not just like a pure step-by-step list of the last 15 years of Canary Cry, starting at Age of Deceit 1, New World Order and Fallen
Angels and the New World Order. Yeah,
all the way through, like just every single thing we've done for 15 years laid out in timestamp form in one Tucker Carlson episode. I mean, it's brilliant. It's beautiful. And we do have some of our own time stamps that we're going to go through. Because again, this is not just for fun, okay? We are exploring the movement that we have seen over the past 10, 15 years that is sort of culminating in literally this week. Like the operation seems to be the final phase of the operation seems to be getting activated this week. It seems to be a very important week.
Well, I think it's a lot of it has to do with the UFO files dropping. There's rumors that and we'll get into the Trump stuff too, the Trump trolling stuff.
They got to round it out. They got to round it out before they can actually disclose the Great Deception, right? We know that the next step is the Great Deception. Daily Mail told us, of course. And before,
pastors in their secret meeting told us.
And it's like before the Great Deception, those who stand to benefit from the Great Deception, what would be the final thing to disclose or to inject into the masses that would finally fully prepare the most amount of people to fall for the Great Deception? And that would be the reintegration of the Gnostic heresies into Christians' understanding, because of course the Great Deception, the whole point is that there's going to be a huge amount of the elect. Even the elect can be deceived by the Great Deception, and we have this whole big new group of the elect, a big new group of Christians. And what's the last step to make them vulnerable to the Great Deception is to introduce and integrate the sort of esoteric, Gnostic, new agey fly in the ointment that can twist the inoculation that is Jesus Christ. Salvation in Christ is the vaccine against the deception. But what can twist that? What can render it inert? It's the integration of sort of these heresies that have plagued Christian thought for a very long time. And the heresies tend to be the one small step that brings a solid Christian into a new agey type of version of Christianity, right?
Yeah, and leading up to this interview was the last interview was Owen Benjamin, who is almost seen as sort of
which is
an
bizarre.
outcast.
That's a whole other thing. Owen Benjamin getting brought on Tucker Carlson is totally other thing, but it is really weird, really bizarre.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start off here.
Let's jump into some time codes and just take it piece by
I was
piece.
just gonna start it from the 2913, the Book of Enoch, the Nephilim, and adrenochrome. I'm gonna let it play out. I think it's like 2 or 3 minutes. It's not too long, if I'm not mistaken. But just so you get a feel for the depth or lack thereof of the conversation taking place. Oh, hold on. Am I missing it? Here we go. Let's see. Sorry about that. Here we go. Oops. 29:13. Here we go.
What's interesting is if you bring up that story from Enoch, and it's alluded to in Genesis 6 as well, people look at you like that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Where does that come from? Is that like a David Icke concept or something? But then if you just assess it non-emotionally, that's pretty much every religion tells that story, including Christianity.
Right.
Jesus is the product of spirit and a human woman, God and Mary. So,
okay, I'm sorry. I have to pause it right there because this is one of those little subtle things that I think we're talking about here. This whole vibe of today's show is about this drawing in the Christians and introducing them to all these esoteric concepts. And from what I understand, for the last 15 years, we've been looking at this Genesis 6 topic and the Nephilim and all this. And the context by which Jesus was born of a Virgin Mary, some would say, hey, God was the father, the one that fathered or whatever. But theologically, the reason why Jesus had to be born of a virgin was because it was ending and reversing this problem, this corruption problem that comes from this ancient practice of these entities, these beings, some might call them non-human intelligences, or these angels mating with human women and creating basically a race of abominations, which were called the Nephilim before the flood. And so to flatten that problem and include Jesus as part of the narrative, like, hey, Jesus, same thing. God, giving birth with a human, I guess, child with Mary.
To put it one way, once the reason to familiarize yourself with the Nephilim story, the sons of God coming and mating with human women, is it is the origin of the bloodline problem of humanity, of the adversary invading and corrupting the God's creation and messing up the gene pool basically through this mixing of spiritual beings with human women. The answer to that problem was God reintroducing God back into creation, right? That is one of, there are many, but it is one of the really heavy bits about the way that Jesus was brought into the earth. It was God reclaiming his relationship with humanity. And that's why Jesus is considered the new Adam. It is this
Second
sort of
Adam,
the second Adam, sort of reclaiming of the actual creation, like actual genetics, actual seed lines, actual bloodline, this whole thing. But instead of presenting Jesus being born of a virgin as God reclaiming his creation, being it's juxtaposed, it was the answer to the problem. Tucker Carlson presents it as how similar it is, saying it's the same thing.
Story,
just as the Nephilim, just as the fallen angels came and mated with human women, so is Jesus being born of a virgin. See, they're the same thing. It's a very subtle difference.
It's subtle, but it's
huge
very
problem.
It's a huge problem. He's basically saying Jesus is a Nephilim right here. I mean, more or less, maybe not directly.
It is. Yes, it's not what he's saying, but it is sort of the spirit of the implication that he is laying out there. Yeah, all religions talk about angelic beings mating with human beings. Even Jesus was born of a spiritual father. No. You're missing the point, Tucker. It's not. It's the opposite of the point. You're making the opposite point, my friend.
All right, we're gonna keep moving here.
The Greek myths are the same.
Alexander his mother said that Zeus came to her.
Exactly. So I'm not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not proof, but it's certainly an indication this is not like a crazy new theory that David Icke thought up.
Not at all. And that's why I always say
it's like the basis of every religion.
Yeah, but that's why people get so they want you to think about Icke as like he's the crazy guy. But that's why I studied history, because I wanted to say, no, Icke is just picking up on old traditions, and he's just listening to people that are telling him stories, which I think
you can hear that story in any church in the United States every Sunday.
Exactly.
So, right. So it's not concept.
Okay.
Tucker is saying you can hear the story of the Nephilim in any church on any Sunday.
No, see this again.
The point of our entire career, Gons. What has been the point? Almost the rallying cry of all fringe Christians in the past 10, 15 years has been, oh my gosh, churches are not recognizing or teaching this. Churches, why is all of this being kept out? That people need to hear this, and then Tucker's like, oh yeah, go to any church on any Sunday, and you'll hear good talking about
the reason why he's saying that is because he flattened Jesus as equivalent to he just did it with the whole Mary example.
Right. Yeah.
With that premise, he can say, oh, they're hearing about Jesus every week. It's the same. They're hearing about this idea that a divine being mated with a human woman and had a child.
Yeah.
And that child is Jesus, right? I mean, if you think about how subtle that deception is for the Great Deception with aliens as part of this conversation, I mean, the setup is, to us, it's so obvious, right? I mean, we're like pulling our hair out trying to get more people to understand this, but maybe it's not meant to be for everybody to understand it. But man, that is, and especially because part of the narrative with this UFO disclosure thing is the hybrid program. You know, this whole idea that they're mating, there's children that are being kidnapped and they're being brought into this hybrid program, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. There's stuff that's out there on this topic. So,
yeah, again, looping in transhumanism, looping in Epstein, looping in the aliens, looping everything in.
Yeah, right. Okay, so let's let Tucker continue here. I mean, he's almost more interesting than the guest here, but let's continue.
Actually, it's not a departure from what people have thought for thousands of years, that there is the physical reality of actors from the spiritual realm impregnating human women.
Right. And going again, I mean, even the Anunnaki texts of the Sumerians before, you know, which predates the Old Testament, talking about exactly this thing about the Anunnaki sky gods creating the first humans as their workers. And, you know, and again, like the flood mythology comes from that, you know,
right. That God was so displeased by the behavior of the Nephilim that he destroyed the world.
Right.
And their behavior that he specifically called out was violence.
Right. And eating of humans. The Nephilim did. Remember?
Really?
Oh yeah. The giants ate the humans.
Okay. Just hold on. Not going to make a big deal about it. But he gets so close, right? And we see this, and we're going to learn some interesting things about this Sean Stone guy. But you see just how close. He says, you know, that is the reason for the flood of Noah. And they, okay, all right, talking about the Nephilim, talking about the flood of Noah, talking about corrupting the image. Okay, all right, we're getting there. And he says, not that it was because of wicked spiritual forces corrupting creation, but it's because of the behavior of the Nephilim, because the Nephilim were mean to each other. And Sean Stone begins to insist that it was because the giants, the Nephilim, were eating people, which is so close. It's so close. It's crazy.
It was just cannibalism, guys. It was just I mean, you know, that's part of their behavior. That's part of the issue, but
it's the joke we bring up all the time. The flood wasn't because the people were being mean to each other. It also wasn't because Nephilim were behaving badly. It's
because they were eating people.
Because they're eating people. Look, those things are bad.
It's true. Those things are. It does mention that in First Enoch and like Book of Jasher and some extra biblical texts. So it was part of the mythology. But yes, that's not the reason.
Fundamental corruption of creation that was caused by the genetic tampering of the sort of wicked sons of God, the rebellious sons of God. It was not because they were being mean to each other or sinning. They were mean to each other and they were sinning, but it was because of the essential corrupting of creation that needed to be erased so that God's original plan could be started again. And this is such a core, and again, such a slight, they just missed it, right? They're just this close, similar to like Hunter Biden in the Candace trailer, right? You're just so close, but there's just this little tweak and you just missed it. And that's the point with the heresies, right? These specifically the Gnostic heresies, they were so close, but they just were obsessed with this one little twist to try to change the reasoning, to change the history, to change the actual theology in such a small point, which is why true Orthodox biblical Christianity and some forms of New Age can appear so close that if you are not familiar with the tiny subtleties, it's very easy to tip into one side or the other. And this is a great example. Again, the Nephilim history and the Nephilim theology is so concretely known now. Again, throw away our 10 to 15 year of talking to all the researchers who have brought this into, researchers and friends who have brought this into the mainstream, even decades before that, right? This has been going on for a long time and has been known before, of course. But here we are, just right on the precipice, a huge new group of Christians who are going to be coming in contact with this episode of Tucker. They've kind of heard of the Nephilim. It's been a hot topic lately. And now this is just going to get them so close, but miss the truly core point of the whole Nephilim flood. Jesus is the second Adam. Truth of the matter. It's really, it obviously is getting me hyped, but it is so
it's both of us hyped.
Crazy. Really
and have you noticed how, I mean, I guess this is a clip out of the podcast, so whatever, but the conversations, like if Tucker brought this conversation to me and brought it up, I mean, I would just, you and I would both start ranting about stuff, right? All kinds of different directions. But the Sean Stone doesn't go very deep. He's kind of regurgitating some pretty surfacey things about the Sumerians and Anunnaki, and it's like, okay, let's go a little deeper. You know what I mean? And they don't go any deeper than this.
He can't help but bring in the rest of the New Age sources for this version of the telling of the Nephilim narrative. Right.
Yeah.
That's where it gets messed up. Like it's so known and it's so solid and it's so there from the actual Christian perspective. But once you start flippantly including, again, trying to find non-biblical evidence and sources for these things, that's when you start adding the Anunnaki, you start adding the sort of New Age versions of the story, and that gets you really close. But you're just 1 degree off, and like a ship crossing the ocean, 1 degree of a directional shift can put you hundreds of miles off course.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's go back here.
Do you remember?
That's in the Book of Enoch.
It's in one of them. It's either, I mean, I thought it was in the Bible, but it's definitely in Enoch then, because that was the issue, that the giants were eating people. And so this, then takes us to the very, present day of, when demon, the lore around demons drinking human blood, or like, demon possessed humans drinking human blood, Dracula mythology, right? I mean,
yes.
This is all, it's drawn upon the old world, but when Hunter S. Thompson talks about adrenochrome and people say, oh, he made that up. And I go, yeah, except I talked to a military intelligence guy who goes, adrenochrome is real because it comes across our messaging boards all the time. Adrenochrome is being trafficked into the country.
So adrenochrome is a compound from the human adrenal gland. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is it's like an adrenaline. Basically, it's adrenaline that gets secreted and from, like, obviously adrenaline from anxiety, from stress, from fear, and it's something specifically that is being used for as a drug, or is it demonic food? I don't know. I mean, it's not something that I've personally experienced, but it's like we're connecting the ancient world to the modern world, and it seems to be, if it's one long thread, we can't just ignore that.
Well, here's something that thieves count on. Security cameras usually stop.
Ad time. Drop
it. Time. Good time for an ad break, everybody. Time to throw an ad in there.
Right after adrenochrome. Boom. This is why you need special types of Wi-Fi. Sold to you by Tucker Carlson. Oh, this is great. I love this because it's such a, we needed something. We had this one.
Everybody loves waffles.
We had the Ben Shapiro one where we made fun of Ben Shapiro for going into an ad break. Right. The most important thing for the next election. This is up there. This might be even better because it's adrenochrome to selling whatever he's selling in here. Some kind of internet connection thing for truckers or something. But man, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, so was this 3430? Was this your timestamp or mine? On the doc, because it's a long.
Well, I mentioned it in the thing. I think you put that there because there's a.
Go to 3430. So we're at 3241 in 1 minute. So he does this ad break right here, and go to about 3430. So this is directly out of an ad break.
Okay, let me see. It's hard to get the exact time.
It's okay. You can go a little bit before. It doesn't need to be exact.
All right,
that's fine.
Let's see. All right, 3421.
Occupations for every civilization before 1945, and they've just been eliminated from public conversation
by media. But media is the greatest magician of all, right?
Oh.
I mean, that's
okay. So
isn't that interesting? Directly out of an ad break, they go into this conversation about media being the greatest magician of all. He says some interesting things there. We can play it, but it was just so perfect. He does like almost, I think it's like a 2-minute ad break. It's like ad after ad after ad, and they come out of it straight into this media being the greatest magician of all. It's incredible.
Do people realize? Do you think they realize when they're watching that?
Of course not.
The Tucker Carlson network is sort of the tip of the spear when it comes to,
there's no better
media.
There's no better advertisement, ironically, for the value for value model, right? He's coming in, they're talking about adrenochrome, they're talking about the magicians of the media. I mean, all the stuff that people are tired of hearing me rant about all the time for years, 10 years or more, right? They're sick of it. They roll their eyes when they start hearing me talk about it. And they go in to talk about the exact same thing, but boom, first they must serve their masters. First, they must serve the advertisers. And it's not just the corporations themselves. It's the theology of advertising. It's that these conversations can't happen unless the corporate overlords are blessing them and paying for them and brainwashing. He's calling the media the greatest magician. And we're going to let it play for a little bit long. And they talk about the actual brainwashing of the media, which is the advertising. The media wouldn't exist if it weren't for the advertisers. The advertising is the lifeblood of the magicians of the media. All social engineering goes back to, is paid for, and it is fueled by the sacrifice of your consciousness and the mind control of advertising to control how you think and how you feel about things. These conversations, again, from the New Age side, from the esoteric side, this is not solid Christian perspective on the whole thing. Of course, it's got to be on that side of things, or else the media wouldn't pay for it. They would not be advertising on the show. They would not be paying for it if it wasn't slightly askew to the esoteric, the occult, and everything else. Play the clip for a little bit longer.
It's so interesting that you mentioned 45. Obviously, that's the end of the Second World War.
Right.
British broadcasting was originally part of British intelligence. Like, it was always, they understood that propaganda was key. I mean, that was First World War effort. Bringing us into the First World War, getting us involved, and then obviously the Second World War, the same. There was a huge amount of.
Pause it for a second. But talking about the beginning of broadcasting, the beginning of propaganda? You mean propaganda invented by Edward Bernays, who also invented advertising after he used his new theory of propaganda derived from his uncle Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis, where he learned how to control mass population through propaganda, and then after the war turned quote unquote propaganda into advertising, the thing that is paying for you to talk about this right now. Keep going. It's insanity.
Propaganda that was put out for it. But then we adopted those same techniques post 45, I would say, with the various radio projects, whether it was like, and from radio to television, right? The same concept. A lot of the guys, as you know, that were like intelligence OSS officers or, part of the OSS then became like executives and whatnot for the original, TV channels, which, as you know, at the time was.
Hey, maybe kind of like what's happening now with all the ex-CIA people flooding the alternative media and independent media space.
Radio turns into TV. What did TV turn into? Streaming. What's the most famous streaming platform? Netflix, which was founded by the nephew of Edward Bernays, the creator of propaganda, through his uncle's psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. You mean there's a direct, not only spiritual, but physical genetic lineage of all advertising, propaganda, and mind control through mass media? That's pretty interesting. What an interesting connection to make there, Sean Stone.
It's like, what, like 4? It was like ABC, CBS,
3 plus PBS,
NBC,
4.
Right. And so it was very important to send out messaging. And then likewise with radio, it was the same thing. It was like, okay, first radio was used, for information before television, right. But then radio became.
We can stop it there. We know the history of propaganda and broadcasting. We know that. Let's jump to 4120. Okay. Because we're kind of having to jump around. But the question is like, well, this guy seems to be like pretty, he kind of, whether he's meaning to be slightly off or not, he obviously has spent a lot of time looking into this stuff, right? Okay, so he's so close. He's talking about stuff that was strictly for fringe tinfoil hat podcasters that nobody would even think to advertise on for many decades. So who is this guy? Let's check this out, 4120.
Out, but like in between,
we're already pretty far out.
The initiation, the first degree and the third degree, from in that time period, I would get phone calls from 666 numbers all the time. 666, 6666. We want your soul, like just demonic voices. I want your soul. This kind of nonsense.
So Satan called your cell.
I mean, I don't know if if it was Satan or.
Hold on.
We might need to go back a little bit longer.
We need a little ISO of Tucker Carlson with a serious face. So Satan called yourself.
Bro.
Okay, sorry. You want me to go back?
Might need to back up. Go about a minute back. I may have messed up this time code just a little bit.
Okay, here we go. Maybe I'm going almost 40 seconds back or something.
Okay.
So here you go.
King down normal qualities in a young man. I'm not saying it's a pederasty thing. But it does have to do with...
Yeah, abuse has many forms.
That's right.
There's the physical, there's the verbal. The sexual is just usually like the one that no one wants to talk about.
No, that's right.
But obviously occurs.
So, okay. So how long were you a Mason?
I mean, it's not like you ever like establish like I'm going to meetings. No, I wanted to initiate to 3 degrees. I entered... And in between, by the way... Okay, so this is why I know this gets far out, but like in between,
we're already pretty far out.
The initiation, the first degree and the third degree, in that time period, I would get phone calls from 666 numbers all the time. 666, 6666. We want your soul, like just demonic voices. I want your soul. This kind of nonsense.
So Satan called your cell.
I mean, I don't know if if it was Satan or the CIA, but someone with a 666 number that sounded satanic called my cell and would be like, "We want your soul." And I would just laugh. I would be like, okay, I mean, it's not mine to give. My soul belongs to God. So I don't know what you're talking. I can't help you. Basically, I don't know what.
I think I'm jumpier than you because if I was, in between degrees in the Masons and Satan started calling me, I would drop out.
Well, it's not about dropping out or not. It's about initiating as I said, it's an initiating and understanding of the world. And that's why I believe the checkerboard is very real. Like the way that it's designed is the checkerboard on the floor. It's black and white. Not all Satanists are evil. I do believe that there's the path of light and there's a path of dark. They want to assess who you are.
Not all Satanists are evil.
It's an interesting thing to say. Not all Satanists are evil. Okay, there we go.
It's interesting he brings up the checkered board, just connecting it back to Candace. Didn't Candace's Catholic Church bishop thing, a lot of people were pointing out the checkered floor by which her sort of ceremony took place. It was very prominent in the image. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. But anyway, let's
notice the subtlety here. Learbag sees it. Notice the subtlety here. He's talking about how he was in the Masons and, it's just an initiation and demons started calling my phone. But then I said, sorry, my soul is not mine to give, it's God's, right? So you kind of get the impression like, oh, okay, maybe he was a Mason, but now he's a Christian. Like he's saying his soul belongs to God, like he's resisting these demons. Okay, that's good. But, not all Satanists are evil. Right, it's just kind of an initiation. So you're like, what? Okay, all right, okay, whatever you say, dude. There's more of this. There's an interesting one here. Just a comment about
before you move on. So I'm gonna go back to this still image of Candace talking to Hunter. If you look on the shelf in the back, you can see the photo of Candace, and you can see the checkered floor. I don't know if you can see it, Basil. It might be too small. I can't really zoom in too well, but it's you can see it's the photo. It's the image of Candace getting initiated into the thing. And also, just real quick, back to Oliver Stone's son here. Reuters in 2012 had this headline: Oliver Stone's son converts to Islam.
Right.
Okay, and so apparently during some filming in Iran, it says, he quote, "The conversion to Islam is not abandoning Christianity or Judaism, which I was born with. It means I have accepted Muhammad and other prophets." Stone, whose famous father is Jewish and mother is Christian, told AFP. So already is sort of a headline grabbing, "I'm converting to Islam," is under this Freemasonic presupposition of like, hey, we're all unifying.
Yeah, and this was what, 15 years ago that this story was posted, and you get the impression, like the article says, it's not, he's not necessarily Islamic like we would think of an Islamist or something, but he's kind of in this Freemason spiritual conglomerate kind of thing. And he tells a story about how he was getting another like demon phone call, right?
Yeah. This was before the whole Nephilim stuff. We got to go back to the 5 minutes.
He tells this story. He tells this story about how he's getting a demon phone call, and whoever's on the phone notices what he's wearing around his neck. So like someone was watching him, or the demon could see him or something. And he says, I didn't grab the time code, but he says, I was wearing a cross around my neck. I mean, I was wearing an Islamic sword around.
Sword. Yeah, I noticed. I caught that too. I was like, oh, it was a cross, but no. I mean, it was an Islamic sword, and apparently that was troubling this person that's on the other line.
Yeah, and
I have the timestamp here of the
Islamic sword that he was wearing around his neck, and he told the story in the same way that we hear the story about the cross a lot. We've heard the story of how, like, a cross around the neck. There's the CIA documents where if somebody's trying to astral view you or whatever, and you're wearing a cross, then it becomes hard to see you. We've heard stories of like alien abductions where they can't get near you if you're wearing a cross, and we don't necessarily theologically, wearing a cross, it doesn't necessarily, it's not like a talisman.
It's not a talisman or an amulet or something that prevents. It's giving it too much power.
Even the theology of these stories of like the cross is like a sacred object that aliens can't touch. Like there's problems with that. But anyway, so he's telling a story similar to the story we've heard about crosses, and he says the word cross and corrects himself and says, I was wearing this Islamic sword pendant or something. It's just very interesting. So the guy's kind of all over.
That's sort of the kicker of this clip, where he's talking about the whole initiation ritual of becoming a Freemason. So I believe this was the timestamp, right? The 5:25.
Yeah, this is just a little bit. I grabbed this one more interestingly to hear the comment made by Tucker Carlson. So yeah, I go to 5:25.
You don't think of them as a threat or even a meaningful player in.
He's talking about Freemasons, by the way,
right.
that go to the lodge
in current events. But then I should say I don't know.
Oh no, they got us.
So at all. You joined the Masons. Why did you do that, and what was it like?
So it was a journey of initiation. I think that I was going through in that time, right out of college, because in my college years, I started getting deep into studying history, and even in the Procopius was writing the history of Justinian, right, the Roman emperor, Byzantine emperor. And he described him as a shape-shifting demon, basically, in that book, in The Secret History. And that was buried for a long time. And, again, there's all types of histories that King James was James's Bible, but he also wrote a demonology book, right? I mean, this was the way that the world was perceived and understood for centuries, as we know.
As a battleground between dark and light.
Yeah, I mean, as forces that were unseen. I mean, Socrates talked about his daemon, like but be called genius. But they say, like, in the old world, there's a theory that when Homer is writing about the Iliad and about all these different gods having play in human life, a lot of people believe that we were in communication more readily with beings, right? Unseen beings. And it may have been a real factor in our consciousness back then. And then we, obviously we get to this place of the Enlightenment when all of that becomes relegated and we say, oh, that's all, hocus pocus and not real. We can only focus on the physical.
Man, something's going on with my internet connection.
But you can't understand how life begins through the physical realm alone. You can't understand how the universe is formed.
No.
Right? I mean, how does a Big Bang start? Just
I may have
happens.
gotten the wrong
Okay.
time. I may have gotten
this is kind of droning on and on here.
We're going
we've gone 2 minutes
now, so that's probably not it. But what he says is, he's talking about his time as a Freemason, and he says, I still have my ritualistic Freemason sword hanging on my wall. And Tucker Carlson says, oh yeah, me too. Mine's hanging right there.
We need to find it. Man, I wish I could find it. Let me scrub. Let me scrub and see if we can get
thing in the universe. And TTI does this kind of.
There's more stuff to look at. It's not worth you stopping the show for it.
Okay.
Go to 2357. It's possible that
Oh, maybe that's the spot.
It's possible that it's a different time code that I have written.
Oh wait, no, there was an ad before then too. My goodness.
There's ads all
brought
over
to you by some other company. 2552.
57. You can whatever. Sometime before 2350.
23. Okay.
Yeah, just wherever.
We're in the ad though. I don't know. We're in the ad, but okay. All right.
So make the switch. Visit Van Man.
Jeez, we're just.
Oh no, I think the ad stops here. It's probably the end of the ad, and then he goes into this thing, which makes it even more hilarious.
Teeth that remineralizes them and strengthens your enamel naturally. No fluoride at all, and totally edible. You can put it on toast. Not that you'd want to, but you could. People who use it report whiter teeth less.
All right, you're fired from timestamp collecting. Okay, this is why we.
You're on 2330. You're not even close to the end of the ad. Go to the end.
Okay.
You're playing 30 seconds of it.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Here we go. All right,
Van Man, real ingredients, zero exceptions. So the Masons practice a religion? How would you describe what Masonry is?
Well,
got to take a sip of my.
I mean, Masonry is based in the Old Testament. A lot of the Masons I know are Christian, but again, I look at it as an initiatory path. So I don't look at it as Masons are evil. What I experienced was that so I'll put it like this. The first night that I went there.
Where was this?
The Cornerstone Lodge in New York, which is a very famous lodge. People like Jay-Z, go there and whatnot. It's, it's
Jay-Z's a Mason.
Yeah, from my understanding, he was with that lodge as well, but higher than I was. But the point is that it's an initiation that kind of what I felt was being observed and watched, and I know it was watched because after doing the first degree initiation, where you get the blindfold and the noose and all this stuff is online. I'm not revealing some secrets. All the phrases and things, the geometry of it, where you have to walk, certain directions and points and say certain things. All that's online now. It's public. But when you perform it ritualistically, like a play, there are other forces that are not human that are engaging in the experience.
Oh, interesting.
And I know that because when I was leaving the lodge that night with my friend, we got a phone call, and it was an unknown number.
And this is where he tells the story about the cross. So there's an interesting phrase in there that some Canarians might have heard recently in the past couple of years, talking about these rituals being like plays, right? And it's funny because a lot of individuals, like he says, a lot of these rituals you can now watch online. You can watch some like secret footage that people filmed of these rituals, and they're super corny, right? It's like a bunch of old guys, usually old guys. They have bad plastic props a lot of the times. They're usually in like, a low hanging drop ceiling with like asbestos tiles, and it's like not very aesthetically like spooky. It's not very aesthetically cool, like you see in the movies, but it's almost like adults putting on children's plays. These is what their rituals kind of look like. And to a degree, what I talked about before is this might be on purpose, because you see some of these rituals and you're like, okay, this is corny. These are just like guys playing dress up. This isn't scary. There's nothing to worry about here. But the point that it looks like a play, that it looks corny, that I even gave the history of theater, right? Even putting on plays themselves in their very ancient form were spiritual rituals. That is what they were for. They were to call upon the characters and the spirits and the deities involved in those plays. Early plays were all about the gods. They were all acting out these, stories of deities. And through the ritual of acting out the play, the gods were invited to come watch. The gods, the people, the individuals participating, where you could earn the blessing of the gods. The community who came to watch it would benefit from these sorts of things. So the very history, we talk about Hollywood and movies and how they're all, got the esoteric Gnostic symbolism, and they got this, and we think this is kind of like a modern thing, that like Hollywood is Satanist, where from the very beginning, the plays exist because they were rituals to the gods, right, to different deities. And so, just for those who have rolled their eyes at me before about this, this guy's saying basically the same thing. And he's saying it in a way, again, as he keeps saying, Masons are not evil, not all Satanists are evil. It's done in this sort of flippant manner to sort of degrade the seriousness of what it's supposed to be. He says it's not a religion. It's just like a way to start thinking about things, to understanding things. But it's in the corniness. It's in the simplicity. It's in the cheapness. It's in the boringness of it just being like a bunch of adults putting on a children's play, that the power resides, right? And it works as sort of a defense against the critics. Because you can just say, oh, it's just a kind of a play. It's nothing serious. They're not,
right.
So
plausible deniability. It's just,
right.
It's just some good old boys, putting on a costume and cosplaying some stuff, it's nothing serious. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I see you have a couple other timestamps here.
Just a couple other interesting. Go to 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 20 seconds.
All right, here we go.
Technique. So Russia had been the British enemy. We inherited that, And then we basically bought into the New World Order ideology. That's why we kept going into this globalist mentality for decades, of committing
But
ourselves.
there's a supernatural element too. It seems obvious. It was only in the last year, after a lifetime of living next to it, that I realized the Pentagon is in the shape of a pentagram.
Yes.
What?
He has such joy on his face when he.
I'm glad Tucker's up to speed on the architecture and symbolism of DC. Only until a year ago he figured it all out. He wasn't paying
This
attention.
is classic Tucker too. He pretends to not know about anything. Like this, Tucker pretends to be an idiot. He's really not. Like there's been several times where people have caught him in this in other senses too. Like, I never met the guy. Who is that guy? It's like, bro, you worked with him for 20 years. You said he was your best friend. Why are you pretending you don't know him? Right. So this is kind of how Tucker does it. But yeah.
Right, so
but again,
so this
just
is
real
about
quick,
the New World Order, right?
Yeah,
So-
again, they're talking about Freemasonry. They're talking about these things. Now they're getting into symbols and architecture specifically. And Tucker pretending he didn't know anything about the Pentagon being in the shape of a pentagon. Wow, you never know. It's very cool.
A new world order.
That I realized the Pentagon is in the shape of a pentagram.
Yes.
Why, of all potential architectural designs, would you put your headquarter, your military, in a pentagram?
Again, the stars that soldiers wear. It's like, as you know, like if you've seen movies or whatnot, like the pentagram pentagram is a very common image for can be for protection. There's an invocation of protection through it, and then there's also the inverted pentagram, which is oftentimes used for sacrifice. Like you'll see it in films, right, where they'll put the pentagram on the floor and within a circle, and then they'll do a ritual sacrifice within it.
Well, it's the central image of Satanism.
Yeah, exactly. The inverted horns, right? It's like the horns. It's the inversion of the pentagram. So again, it
We're
can be used
dull
either
on
way.
symbolism, I notice, in our culture for some reason.
Well, people are waking up.
But we went through this period where, for all of history, symbols really matter.
Yeah.
They really matter.
Yeah.
In a lot of world, they still matter. And then in the West, for the last 80 years, symbols are just null and void.
Yeah.
Like your average person is not allowed to notice the symbolism in anything.
Yeah. No, we have to.
Poetry dies, metaphor dies.
Exactly.
The spiritual life withers, and we just don't notice that our military is headquartered in a building called the Pentagon. And by the way, I learned this from you at breakfast this morning. I have no idea what it means, but I was amazed to learn
No idea.
that the cornerstone of the Pentagon was laid on September 11th, 1941, 60 years to the day that the flight 77, I think, was flown into it.
77 is a magical number too. So, again, I think of these events as mass rituals.
Wait, I mean, I just learned this morning eating my omelet. So
I'm just eating my omelets, guys. I just found out.
Just learned this. Had no
It's
idea.
my omelets.
So again,
my omelets.
you look at where people are. A lot of people catching up to conspiracy theories. A lot of people catching up to mass rituals. A lot of people catching up to these things. And as we've said before, we said it with L.A. Marzulli recently. We've said it before. I said it on Clubhouse. There is obviously an operation to catch everybody up to speed, right? The stuff that people like us have worked really hard for and in the shadows and getting shadow banned and being called crazy, all this sorts of stuff, talking about symbolism, blah, blah, blah. There's obviously an operation, dare I say a CIA operation, to catch everybody up to speed, right? Like Tucker this morning over eating his omelet just learned that, all these things that have been known for a really long time. They're here to catch everybody up to speed. And in the sort of conspiracy theory culture, in all this stuff, you come to a fork in the road. And it doesn't matter who you are. It will come to you at different points. Doesn't matter if you're a Christian. Doesn't matter if you're not. You could be a totally secular person catching up on conspiracy theories. You will, I guarantee it, come up to a fork in the road. And you must choose one side or the other. There is no option to avoid it. And the fork in the road is Christ or New Age. You either put everything together you are guaranteed to come to the supernatural conclusion, and then your choice is Christ or New Age. And to follow Christ is what inoculates us against the great deception coming. And to choose incorrectly, to go the New Age route, is to open you up and make you susceptible to the great deception. Foundationally, the great deception is created, is made, is geared towards, is targeted at those on the New Age side of things. The aliens are here to help us. The aliens are angels. Jesus was an alien. This whole thing that everybody's been catching up on recently. And what we see here is a bunch of people who came to trust Tucker. Maybe they chose the Christ side. Maybe they became Christian in the past couple of years. And Tucker presenting himself as a Christian, they gained his trust. And now they come, they watch his show all the time because he brings this Christian spin to it. And this episode right here is where the subtle shift from solid Christ following theology into the Gnostic heresies, into the New Age side of things. This is a very dangerous and a very, let's say, effective and elegant operation that is preparing a boatload of new Christians, lining them up for the great deception, just as the Bible told us. And I think it's clear as day.
We haven't talked about this in a little while, but we used to bring it up all the time. The University of Exeter in the UK has a master's program in the magic and occult sciences. They just updated this page, Basil, about a month ago, it looks like. And I don't know that there's anything terribly new, but I was just going through some of the coursework because I think at the time it didn't have a whole lot of coursework associated with it. Maybe you remember better than I do, but some of these classes are very interesting. So I remember the Islam angle to this with the kind of like the grimoires or something like that related to Islam. So the talisman, those classes are still there. But there's the themes in archaeological theory and practice, theorizing Islam, philosophizing magic from late antiquity to Middle Ages, the Western dragon in lore,
right?
Magic and folklore in Greek and Roman worlds, the legend of King Arthur. There's two, modules for that. Past magic, histories and archaeologies of the supernatural. And then there's mind, body, and world. There's monsters in the Bible and beyond. I think that I don't remember seeing that last time. So there's a few mental health and social and historical context. Interesting. So look at there's a whole bunch of classes here. Reproduction and reproductive justice. Okay, now we're starting to get into
exactly where they're leading it, right?
Yeah, of course. But so stuff like this has been on our radar for at least a couple years that, hey, the universities are even starting to hand out master's degrees in magic and the occult. And an interview like this with Tucker is a perfect example of why we need, people with degrees, pieces of paper that tell them that they're experts in this subject matter, not necessarily practice per se, but hey, listen, the Freemasons aren't all evil. The Satanists aren't all evil. Let me give you a clear sort of explanation for these things that's not like a Christian talking about it.
Right.
Basically.
And put it in the context of human history, right?
Yeah.
This is human history. And this is where part of the Great Deception, an angle of the disclosure of aliens is like, hey, no, they've been a part of our human history. In what we might think of as spiritual history or religious history, it's really all part of the materialist human history. The aliens have been intervening in human history for a long time, and a lot of it is what we call magic. Now, one last clip.
Okay.
At 1:10:50, just in case somebody needed a little bit more encouragement as to why they spent so many years watching and listening to a podcast that seems to be all over the place. And there's one particular aspect that I'm very proud of our ministry over the years that it has not been a part of other Christian, conspiracy theories, news analysis, fringe Christian stuff. We have several very special and unique things about us, Gons, but they do go into one that I believe we are singular in here.
Trump is on tape on the morning of 9/11 saying, I don't know. How could that have happened? I know those buildings well. I was there when they were built in the early 70s, and the steel in those things is stronger than in any building in New York, and there's no way.
But now you think about the nature of ritual, and what was created was a Holocaust, which is literally a mass burning. And this is, I don't know if you remember the movie called Wicker Man.
No.
The Wicker Man. It was kind of a film about these pagan Satanists, who they do a ritual around one of the equinoxes. I think it was like a summer equinox, and they do they have this guy is in this town realizing that these guys are witches, and all of a sudden he finds himself inside of this massive Wicker Man being burned alive. And it's played out every summer, by the way, in a festival called Burning Man.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh,
welcome to the camp of the unknown God.
There you go. BurningManResearch.com, folks. Go check it out. It's been a weird little part of our work for many years now. And that is you know what? This might be the perfect time. Although, so of course we go, Carl Tykrib, author and researcher of Game of Gods. Go check it out. We've done a lot of episodes with him. He leads a camp at Burning Man every year called Camp of the Unknown God. It's from the Bible. Look it up. And it's mostly a research trip, but it also inevitably, because God is who he is, becomes, sort of an evangelism opportunity just from Christians, solid Christians being present at a place like Burning Man, which of course every Christian will agree that, it's certainly got a reputation, but it's much more than just a bunch of stinky hippies doing bad stuff in the desert, and that's been part of, our work for a very long time. If you go to burningmanresearch.com, you can see many years of our work there. And I just received an email because a lot of people, there's a lot of people get it, and a lot of people really like the Burning Man research episodes. But of course, there's a certain type of person who says, "Oh, no Christian should be out there. Oh, you're putting yourself in danger. Oh, God doesn't want you out of Burning Man. Leave the hippies to the devil." Blah blah blah. They get very sort of petulant about it. I did just receive a couple weeks ago an email from one of the people that I came in contact with at Burning Man. It says, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Rosie. I met you at Burning Man in 2024 at the Camp of the Unknown God. I was with a guy named this name, and we were in the tent while you were doing interviews. At any rate, I wanted to share with you how my journey towards repairing my relationship with God is going." And this was somebody who I met who was very much not following Christ, very much not sort of pursuing a life reflective of that. And they tell this incredible story. This was just back in April, somebody I had not heard of for many years. And she tells this incredible story about how God brought her back to the church, is bringing her family back to Christ, and how, of course, life is not perfect, but she's just so grateful for the work that everybody did out there. So it was amazing to see, even years later, this cascading effect of just coming into contact with people out there and shining a light and sharing what we know, both about all the weird stuff here that Tucker is taking the opportunity to PSYOP people with, but also just simply being a witness to God's goodness. And that's a great reflection of that. I hope maybe to get a chance to talk with Rosie so we can put another episode over there at burningmanresearch.com. But it's pretty trippy, man. In the past couple years, we're just like, well, what do we chop liver? What is even going on here? What are we even supposed to do? Everything that we used to talk about and push for is just like mainstream thing now. And this week, both with the Candace and as we see here with Tucker, there's a reason that God brought us, brought all of our listeners, brought a whole community through 10 or 15 years of exploring these topics, specifically so that we are prepared for this mass psychological operation, this one last ditch effort to bring as many astray as possible, to make them vulnerable to the great deception, as the alien thing, the transhuman thing, the Epstein thing all culminate. And this week is a great example of how Canarians out there are significantly more prepared, thanks to the grace of God, than millions and millions of other people. And this particular Tucker episode has convinced me of that more than anything that we can talk ourselves into, Gons.
Yeah. Well, I think the pushback that we got for people like yourself and Carl Tucker going into Burning Man, the knee-jerk reaction, which I don't know, I don't think it was, I think it's died down a little bit, maybe because we don't, we've made episodes recently. We need to update that page, by the way, that we have a few more interviews that are not on that particular page, but, or just episodes, I suppose, of Burning Man from the last couple of years. But yeah, nobody else is actually doing that kind of ministry, or at least if there are, they're not very, they're not
There's
highlighted.
certainly
They're
other
not,
Christians out there, but
Yeah,
there's
of
certainly
course.
none like a body of work like ours, or doing consistently touching base with people. There's a couple of great Christian camps. They're very small, and many of them don't make a habit of presenting anything. It's one of the great things about the Camp of the Unknown God and the research aspect to it, because that's who Carl Tykrib is, and that's also who we are. So there's many unique angles that God has positioned us for. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's always been a very contentious thing with a certain group of our listeners. Even
people have left producing the show because of it. So we've seen the whole gamut from support to just, we can't support you anymore if you're going to go in there and stuff like that. So
right.
Can't please them all, and it's part of what we do. So, I mean, the more we do it, the more I'm glad you're seeing some fruit from it, though. Like actual sort of years long. I don't know how many years ago this was.
I expect to see more fruit too. I expect to continuously see fruit. There's a few other things in the works, but we've given sort of the broad analysis here of the PSYOP, of the timing for this Tucker episode, for what I'm sure we're going to see Sean Ryan drop something very similar this week. And we've given the sort of the broader analysis in the context of the Great Deception and alien disclosure and all these things. But there's a big risk right now. There's a big risk of these fairly minor. A lot of people would consider these little tiny details to be fairly minor, but I think it's putting a lot of new Christians, maybe even a lot of older Christians, at risk of slipping over to that one side of the fork in the road that is going to deliver on the sort of biblical statements about, even some of the elect are going to be deceived in the Great Deception.
This is partly why I ranted so much about, hey, we need to shift gears on our apologetics as a church from just tearing down atheism to start including the supernatural aspect of this, because before it was, hey, we're not hearing things from church, we're looking for stuff, and maybe you find Canary Cry or L.A. Marzulli or something like that. Now it's, maybe they are talking about it in church more, but they're talking about it in church as a reaction to Tucker Carlson talking about it, or Candace Owens, or Sean, so it's kind of,
or the pastor meeting with the CIA,
or the pastor meeting, the secret meeting of pastors. Yeah. That all just happened to me, Christian Zionists, but we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, so yeah, it's almost like a reactionary thing, and they're almost scrambling, and I don't think it does anything other than the people that are curious, that are actually curious, going back to these episodes and sitting there for maybe 2 hours and listening to a Freemason talk about these topics.
Somebody hearing for the first time, their pastor, who has finally been given permission or the urging to talk about aliens from the secret pastor meeting, and it trended on X and everything. So now you've got a load of pastors across the country, maybe even the world, this weekend, yesterday, maybe for the first time, preaching from their pulpits, the Nephilim alien thing or whatever, probably just saying aliens or demons, whatever, and which means there's millions of parishioners, millions of Christians in regular churches who are coming in contact with this idea for the very first time, and they hear it for the first time 24 hours ago in church. And what do they do on Monday? Well, they go looking for podcasts. They want to know more. They're interested. And the day after the Sunday that all the pastors were told to teach about aliens, you've got Tucker Carlson, possibly the number one podcaster, and perhaps even the number one podcaster claiming to be Christian, giving this angle to it. It's a very dangerous time.
But come on, bringing in the Freemason to talk about it, is that not obvious for people? I guess it's not. If you're just
look, not all Satanists are evil gods. Okay,
I'm not all Freemason. Oh, sorry, you're right. You're right. Got to listen to the son of the producer of film. Okay,
let's take a second.
We're thinking some producers.
Yeah, let's think a couple producers.
Okay.
We are on the value for value model, folks. You'll notice that we don't go into ad breaks in between telling you about how propaganda, is built right into the mass media where all the Gnostic programming is that is going to be activated in you by this Tucker Carlson episode. No, there's no corporation who thinks it's even appropriate to fund things that don't come out and say, yeah, sure, maybe there's a lot of propaganda, but Masons aren't evil, Satanists aren't evil. Okay, here's an ad break. Here's a 3-minute ad break, right? If that's not the most obvious example of what we've been telling you for years, I don't know what is. You're just not going to get it. Instead, we're on the value for value model, which means we don't take any money from corporations, commies, cartels, Freemasons, anybody like that. We are entirely funded by people just like you who get value from what we do. If you get value, if you've been getting value, if you want to continue to get more value, there's an understanding that this cannot and will not exist without the personal participation in people who understand and put value back into the system. And it's value in whatever form that means to you. We call it your time, your talent, your treasure. If God's given you value in the form of your time to help us out with stuff, if he's given you value in the form of talent to create music, create jingles, create art, you can put your value in that way by going to canarycry.art and uploading the art there. Or if treasure is the place that God has given you the ability to put value into things, we must be proactive in putting value into stuff that is not supported by the system, or else it will not exist. It's just the very nature of this world that we're in. And so you can go to canarycry.support. The numbers, there's suggestions there, but it's really whatever God lays on your heart, okay? Doesn't matter if it's $1, if it's $10, if you want to be an executive producer and come in for $100, that's between you and God, and every single time that somebody clicks that button keeps this show alive. So go to canarycry.support to learn more and support the show. Like I mentioned before, executive producers are people who come in, they support any individual episode like this one with $100 or more. So we like to thank them profusely, starting with a producer who just came in. That's Sir Jamie, not the Lannister.
Hey, Sir Jamie. Good to hear from you or see you in there.
Yep, Sir Jamie's back on the list. Thank you very much. Executive producing the show. Comes in with his tithe here. How much is it? $144.67. Thank you, Sir Jamie.
Yeah, it's like $144,000 and 6.7.
And 6.7. That's right. It's for the kids. It's 144,000 Gen Zs or Gen Alphas coming in to support the show.
Yeah.
Next up, we got executive producer Sir Alex Protocol, V2, Baron of the Breen Protocol. And for $100, 33 cents. Thank you very much. He's on a 488 episode streak and a 142 episode executive producer streak. Thank you. We got some producers came in under the executive producer amount. I want to thank them real quick, starting with Sir Marty B. Sir Marty B comes in, I think it's Sir Marty B now to the base, comes in for $77.74.
7777. Thank you very much.
Thank
Sir
you.
Marty B.
We've
Oh,
got-
does he have a? I think Sir Marty B has a jingle, does he not?
Probably.
There you go.
My Ninja Marty B jingle.
That's right. We got
there was
producer
one.
Rebecca T. Rebecca T coming in for $35.79, which is odd numbers. She chose odd numbers.
Yes, 3579. Thank you very much.
She's on a
Appreciate that, Rebecca T.
24 episode streak. Thank you.
24 episodes.
Yeah, she's on a streak.
Very good.
This
Almost
next
busting that
producer-
limit.
This next producer I'm going to call 26 Trail came in for 33.33. Joined the supply drop over at Canary Cry Supply Drop.
Wow, that was really
That's
good. Sorry.
right.
What is it? 26 Trail?
Yeah. We have the deadline for the next supply drop is on the 31st of this episode. And now is a really good time to get in, join the supply drop. For those who don't know, you can go to canarycrysupplydrop.com to learn more and sign up. But when you come in to support the show for $33.33 a month, we're going to start sending you a package filled with awesome stuff every quarter. There is a deadline for this first quarter, or I guess second quarter, on the 31st of this month. And I talked with Sir Ike, and we're going to start putting gold backs in every single supply drop. So those who are signed up for the supply drop, you will be automatically stacking gold, precious metal. Yeah,
That's
right.
gold backs. You can hear it.
That's right, gold backs. If you want to learn more about that, you can find our previous episodes about it. But we made the decision. We're going to be putting gold backs in every single supply drop. So for those who are supporting us on a monthly basis they're going to also be stacking precious gold every single quarter.
God's money.
God's money. Thank you, 26 Trail. Producer Meredith C came in signed up for a monthly producership. God bless you. For $11.11 every month.
11.
That's Meredith C.
Meredith C. And yeah, big old shout out to all of our monthly producers. We could not do the show without you. The monthly producerships give us a huge benefit to being able to look out 30 days from now and say, okay, this is what we got to work with. We're not going to be totally dead. Gives us the faith, the strength to make sure that we stay on it for the next 30 days. So recommend, if anybody is able, if anybody is called, please go over, sign up for a monthly producership. It means a lot.
Yep.
And of course, last but not least, we got CageRattlerCoffee.com, Guns.
Cage Rattler Coffee. For value, never tasted so good.
That's right. Go to CageRattlerCoffee.com. Canarians got together. They said it is just criminal that Canary Cry listeners have to send their money off to big evil coffee corporations that hate everything they believe in and want them to disappear. So instead, don't send your money to big evil coffee corporations who give you moldy coffee and burnt coffee. Instead, go to CageRattlerCoffee.com, where Canarians just like you, for you, have sourced some of the best beans from around the world. It's GMO free, it's organic, it's single origin, and it is roasted in small, loving batches just for you. You can get your Nephilim Hunter Dark Roast, your Emu Wrangler Medium Roast, and of course, Cage Rattler Coffee, supporting the show value for value. Thank you very much. But you're also participating in supporting fellow Canarians. So it's about time we start sticking together, supporting each other. So this is a win all around. Plus, all we ever hear is about how Cage Rattler Coffee is the best coffee that anybody has access to. And it's just for you. It's just for listeners of this show. So go check it out, CageRattlerCoffee.com.
Yep, go do it.
Okay.
Sweet.
That's it. That's it for financial producers for today. Thank you, everybody. It means the world to us, and we're very grateful that God's keeping this ministry going through his people's obedience to participating.
Do we need to mention meetups, or are we going to do that at the end?
So I don't think there's a meetup officially planned. I did get a note from producer Ginger, who says, shout out to fellow Canarians. She's going to Cali Roots Memorial Day weekend in Monterey, California. So if you are going to be or will be around Monterey, California, what is the date on this? Let's meet
May
up.
22nd and 23rd.
May 22nd. Okay. May 27th. That's this weekend. May 22nd,
Friday,
May
Saturday.
23rd. If you're going to be going or around Monterey, California, Memorial Day weekend, Cali Roots. I'm not sure what Cali Roots is. Maybe it's like a music festival or something. But you can email Ginger B, the letter B, busy at gmail.com. That's GINGER, the letter B, BUSY. So 2 B's there at gmail.com. Go hang out with Ginger. Meet up. This is very important. Meet other Canarians in your area. And I don't know what Cali Roots is, but hey, it's going to be great if you're there with Ginger. Go check it out.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. Also, did we have a speak pipe? Is that for now or is that for
There was one from Nomen Prunte. Yeah, if you go to canarycrynewstalk.com, folks, you'll see a green tab on the right hand or the bottom side of the page. You can click on that and you can leave us a 90-second message for whatever you want. By leaving a message, you are giving us permission to play it on the air. If it is not to be played on the air, start your message by telling us that this is not to be played on the air. Or else we can't make any guarantees. But yes, Nomen Prunte, I think, has written another poem for us. So let's
Was this from last week?
I think
Did
it was from last week. Yeah, I think he said it last week.
All right, got it. Here we go.
Nomen Prunte here. This is Something's Coming. The kingdom of heaven is nigh, repent. He who was spoken of and who was sent, a prophet clothed in the hair of camels, crying out, make straight the paths that were bent. Of the Jordan from the hills and the dells, river baptism, a confession that tells, bear fruit in keeping with your repentance, baptized in fire, filled by the Spirit's wells. This free gift only requires acceptance. The chaff will he burn, precluding penance. Let it be so now, for it is fitting. John consented at Jesus' insistence. Baptized, Christ went up, the water quitting. Spirit descends like a dove on the wing. Beloved Son, the Father is well pleased. Through a watery grave, death outwitting.
All right.
Very
Thank you very much.
Nomen Prunte, great work as
Love it.
always.
Yep. For sure. Love it. Okay.
Okay,
That
so I'm looking at the time guns. I made some adjustments to the document as a suggestion. I will let you help me make that decision, but I'm just looking at the list of things. Let's jump into this next section.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of along the same lines. We talked about Anna Paulina Luna, talking about the Book of Enoch, of course, Anna Paulina Luna being sort of the figurehead of disclosure now. Very strange that she's telling people, she's kind of introducing simultaneously from an official platform as the official disclosure person, drawing these connections to the Book of Enoch. She even posted a little clip today saying, I have seen these beings, or I don't know if she means in person or if she means on tape or something. And she left a very strange cryptic message about these are not aliens in the material way that you might think they are. They are something different. I will talk more about it after disclosure. Again, adding to this idea that they're it's not aliens in a physical form like you might think, but kind of once again backing up her assertion that it's more of a spiritual kind of thing. So all that dropping on this Monday, the day after Trump really being a little rascal on social media.
Oh yeah. President Trump did a little something over the weekend.
We will launch a new age.
Certainly a new age being launched with aliens involved.
Aliens.
Well, here we go.
You don't know what you're looking at.
What's driving that thing? It's not a space alien.
Aliens. It's unidentified.
Took a second to get that thing going, but okay. So over the weekend, of course, President Trump, as he always does, starts going on a tirade, a rampage, if you will. And AI has really been great for President Trump for all of his trolling and memeing, or his team, I suppose. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this from Newsweek because Newsweek did talk about this. And the headline here is Donald Trump shares AI photo of handcuffed alien walking next to him. Woo. Just over a week after the release of the Department of Defense's first batch of UFO files, President Donald Trump shared an AI-generated photo of himself walking next to a handcuffed alien on Truth Social on Sunday night, sparking confusion on social media over its meaning.
Are we sure this is AI, Guns? This seems like an assumption. You know, back in 2016, when we were first showing the very first AI-generated images, this was before anybody even knew. This was Google's DeepMind, you know, back when AI was
producing all just eyeballs.
Yeah, well, the text version, they used it originally to like rewrite the Harry Potter script, and it was like so bad, but it was still impressive that it could like put together words. It was really funny, but it's really hilarious. Go look at those 2017 Harry Potter early AI scripts, but there was also started to do images. And yes, the images were really psychedelic. It was all eyeballs. It was very dreamy. It was like the most horrifying idea that a computer was imagining the sort of psychedelic dream world for an image, and they couldn't make it stop. They couldn't stop it from putting eyeballs all over the place. You know, and the take then was, hey, this is bad now, but it's going to get perfect. And the risk is not that they will show you an image and it will be fake, but you think it's real. The risk is they will show you an image, you will think it's fake, you will be convinced that it's fake, but it really will be real. You know, this sort of inversion.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah, talk about sort of the occult, esoteric inversion of truth, right? The risk is not they will show you a fake image and you'll think it's real. It's that they can show you real images when really it's, what am I saying? They show you fake images.
Real images that people will think is fake and dismiss it as fake, even though it might be a real image.
Now, do I really think this is a real image? I don't know. But the philosophy stands that this, if this was a real image, nobody would ever believe it.
It's true. I mean, first of all, it was published in the 9:16, you know, the iPhone or whatever, like what's the vertical view, I guess. And it does look like a normal picture that somebody would take. I mean, it might have been AI'd from a regular picture because, of course, you can see a little bit of the fingers in front of the camera a little bit. And in the background.
It's the kind of picture that everybody goes, everybody's got a cell phone. If there was pictures of aliens, just somebody took a picture with the cell phone.
Right.
And
yeah, exactly.
This is like what that would look like. It doesn't have the like AI shiny fake look. Like it's very convincing.
Yeah, the only problem with the handcuff thing, I mean, maybe these are alien handcuffs, but certainly this alien figure who is, I don't know, maybe 6'5" or something, not terribly tall. But,
no, he's taller than
tall's Trump, like 6'4" or 6'3" or something.
Yeah,
right?
he's tall. He's like 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah, okay, so maybe the alien's 6'6" or something. This is not Victor Wembanyama. This is not a 7-footer. Okay, this is not like some crazy alien guy that's super tall, but he's pretty ripped. And he's got these wristbands on that would be cuffs.
So everybody's calling them handcuffs, but when I look at them, they just look like alien bracelets, basically. Like there's no chain between them.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I was going to mention. From the left hand of this alien, there is a chain-looking rope or something, but it doesn't go to the other wrist. It goes to the other side of his hip. So it's kind of got a weird.
People are calling it handcuffs, but like like, I don't know if the official like government says, here's a handcuffed alien. You know, like people are just kind of processing what they're seeing.
Sure. Yeah.
So and anyway, I'm not saying it's real, but if it was real, you know.
Around his ankles, maybe that's where they're getting more of the cuff thing. It does look more like cuffs or something, you know. There looks like big bracelets or anklets that looks something like I don't know. ankle cuffs or something. But although, if this is the aliens sort of birthday suit, they come with shoes, they're born with shoes. So that's nice, I guess, maybe for the alien to not have to wear any. I mean, maybe they don't have any shame like humans, they're not fallen like humans.
Yeah, grays are often described as naked in sort of a sexless form.
Yeah, but what people are pointing out is this alien gray is buff. He's like tall and buff. Normally the alien grays are small and skinny and, like a vegetable.
Well, if this is the first real picture of an alien gray, then that's our fault for having a distorted idea of what a alien gray might be.
So this wasn't
buff humans, there's non-buff humans,
Sure, yeah.
If you looked at like what's his name? I don't know. Name any buff human next to a skinny, flabby human. You wouldn't say, oh, one's a real human and one's not a real human. Yeah. Look, somebody's got to take the side of this photo, okay? Everybody thinks they're so smart for debunking it. Come on, people. I'm just saying, if it's fake, if it's real, then somebody's got to stand up for the real picture.
And that the man with the googly eyes is standing up for this picture is real PSYOP.
I've died on less interesting hills.
That's true. No, it's fine to go out on a limb on that one. I mean, if you're right, then you're well, maybe they'll pick somebody else to, king make in terms of.
Yeah, of course. Tucker will be the one to show everybody that it's real. I won't do anything with it.
Yeah, well, we're waiting for the press conference. That'll really be the giveaway. But even then, I would imagine the temperament of society today. You can have this guy walk out onto the podium and do mind control tricks with the crowd or something, and people will still be like, "Well, we'll see." Like we don't know if it's real. But there was more than just this image. Now, this one was the one people were talking about, but there was a few more that. Goes along the lines of what we were talking about last week when the first drop came out of the UFO files. And we were saying, hey, how come Space Force isn't involved in this? Why is the War Department releasing this information? Well, they heard our call, Basil. Trump made several posts for Space Force. These are AI pictures of Space Force. And this first one, I love it. This is like he's in some space command center. It looks like he's in the UFO, by the way. Managing it or I don't know, flying the UFO. He's got like a rounded computer, what do you call it? Control board kind of around him. His hands are placed over the sleek looking buttons. And in the background, you can see the window. There's a couple flags. There's the American flag. And then there's the Space Force flag. But there's something that people are calling a typo. But the QAnon folks are calling it for what it is, Basil. It's a message. On the Space Force flag, it's got that Star Trek looking symbol with the little planet behind it. It says STACEBS, then Space Force. It's like STACEBS, Space Force. I don't know. But people are pointing out EBS, Emergency Broadcast System. So they're saying that this is a Q reference to some Q posts about the EBS, the Emergency Broadcast System, that this meme is an emergency broadcast that Trump is relaying to whoever needs to see this and know that it's go time or whatever. And then, of course, there's like laser beams being blown up of satellites and stuff in the background. Very dramatic. So that's one of these images. There's another one. This one's a little bit more straightforward. This one is Trump walking in an aisle that leads to a UFO. You got the Earth in the background there, a couple of American flags, and some robot soldiers, it looks like, holding laser guns, lining up the sides there. And there goes Trump doing his famous finger point with some really stellar looking stylish shades on. So there you go. You got another Space Force one. I didn't see anybody do any sort of esoteric breakdowns of this one. So maybe this is just straightforward. Like, hey, this is Trump with the UFO. Now this one's my favorite, Basil. This next one. By the way, Trump posted like 30 times yesterday on Sunday.
Yeah,
and he
people are
buried
like-
some of these. Like he made these meme posts, and he's going after Iran, he's going after China. I mean, he's all kinds of posts. But of course, people are latching onto the memes here. We're back in the command center of the UFO ship that was there earlier. It's a little different though. This one, Basil, I think this one has a little bit more messaging going on. Now, again, this is Trump. His finger is hovering over a big red button, and he looks like he's in a spaceship. Okay, there's some screens in the background of stuff blowing up. Okay, you got target destroyed and a big nuclear mushroom cloud blast. It looks like there's some asteroids that were blown out of sky. But there's something interesting about this one, Basil. Trump is surrounded by some military leaders, but the size of Trump in this image,
boy,
he's got to be 25 feet tall compared to these military leaders. He looks like a Nephilim. You know those ancient Egyptian either hieroglyphs or sort of the tablets or whatever they found, and they have these what people suggest are depictions of the pharaoh or maybe Anunnaki or something like that, and they're sitting on their throne and they're humongous, and then they have these servants that are like little tiny people, washing their feet or whatever. That's kind of what this reminds me of. Trump is humongous in this image, and all the commanders are just little tiny people surrounding him. So either Oompa Loompas are real, or Trump is a Nephilim. I don't know, but his finger's hovering over the red button. Very scary, Basil. This is
very
I don't know what the message is. Symbolic of so many things. I don't know exactly what it is, but he has certainly got the finger on the button, apparently. And well, this last one is less dramatic in the space fashion, but this is just Trump walking between a couple of American flags. There's some eagles, some bald eagles flying over the sky, and he's pointing. He's wearing his cool shades and he's pointing.
Epic.
So, epic Trump posts. So yeah, I mean, the Newsweek article does go into each one of these, and just as Newsweek does, they do the whole, hey, the internet is talking about it, everybody. The internet is saying things like, what are you trying to tell us at Real Donald Trump? Disclosure season? I caught one energy, or just the biggest troll in presidential history, reads one of the comments written by Truth Social users in response to the post. Or how about this one? We the people can handle full disclosure, wrote another, urging for the full release of all the Department of Defense's UFO files. And then another quote, another distraction from all the failures, wrote a different Truth Social user. So yeah, this, as usual, this is a very deep analysis coming from the likes of Newsweek. Trump wrote no captions to shed light on the meaning of the image, but added several other posts on Sunday night, including 2 AI-generated images of himself sitting on something like a spaceship's command center, overlooking Earth and pressing a red button. We went over those. Yeah, so they're just describing the images here that we just went through. And then it goes into the UFO, what was released in the UFO files on May 8th and what it means and what they were saying on Fox News on the Will Cain show and things of that nature that you would get.
Big news day.
Newsweek. So there you go. I mean, this, again, Newsweek is not helpful in breaking this stuff down. It's just trying to summarize it. I love how they're trying to stay neutral on things, but I thought it was funny that it was at least brought up in the mainstream in that regard. And so, I don't know what the overall messaging is other than one, he met the alien and then he got the injection that made him a Nephilim, a giant Nephilim. Maybe that's what he's trying to say.
Sounds about right.
That's about right. Okay. So there you go. That's our analysis on Trump and his AI memes. But there's another clip going viral right now, Basil, that I think is worth noting concerning this thing. Because look, the alien topic, it's earth shattering. Okay. It's paradigm shattering. All right. Everything you thought you knew about anything, it's broken apart because the government released some files, and not even the most popular scientists are immune to these changes. This is Neil deGrasse Tyson, who wrote a new book, so he's on his little tour. I'm sure he used AI to write it. He probably spent a good afternoon writing this book called Take Me to Your Leader, the champion of science, changing his tune apparently. He was on CNN to talk about the whole alien disclosure topic.
The real question is not are we alone, it's are we ready? Are we?
Yeah, I think we are actually, because given the testimonies that we've heard given and that we heard delivered in front of Congress in 2023, 2024, 2025, from whistleblowers and insiders and military officials, ex-military, ex-intelligence officers, it's it's no longer just the farmer in the back 40, right, commenting on what hovered over their crops, or the revelers coming out of the bar at 2 a.m. So these are people of high rank and all sincere. And so not only...
Are they?
Are
they all sincere?
I love the credentialism here. Of course, because Neil deGrasse Tyson is super duper famous for being skeptical of any UFO thing. We have classic clips from him, just totally considering any idea that there could be anything is just so stupid. It's not even worth his time. And it's so classic Neil deGrasse Tyson and everything that he stands for. He comes in now. The craziest part is he starts it off with saying, she's like, are we ready? Are we ready for the aliens? And he goes, yeah, we're ready. Well, of course we're ready. Like it's no big deal.
He went from there are no aliens to we're ready, baby.
He woke up this morning just totally ready. Not only he, but he thinks everybody's ready. And then to explain himself, he says, no, this isn't the farmer on the back 40, meaning this isn't a redneck. This isn't just some random person.
Like some racist remark.
These are actual government officials saying they've seen things. So it's the core flaw that a lot of people learned during COVID, but is broader than COVID, but that's when it was really pointed out, was the spirit of credentialism in the sort of mainstream scientific narrative. It's all about credentials. Do you have the degree? Do you have the job? Do you have the this? Do you have the that? Because if you don't have the credentials, then we don't believe you. Again, it goes back to the masters in magic and occult arts, right? What's the point of a famous college providing a master's in magic? Is to credential a industry of experts, because the system needs experts in order to go on TV, to write books, to be taken seriously. The system needs to credential you. And this is Neil deGrasse Tyson waking up one morning and finally being okay with aliens. And it's all based on the credentialed people talking about it. As if, and this is so indicative of all of scientism, of all of mainstream science and scientists and everything, the system doesn't take anything seriously until a properly credentialed person comes out and says the exact thing that everybody else has been saying, this sort of indication that reality isn't real until someone with a degree says it so. And it's like the absolute what's the word? He's oblivious. He's oblivious to the fact that this is how he is, right? It doesn't even occur to him to even say like, oh, the farmer was right. Right? He doesn't say, oh, all the uncredentialed people before, turns out they were right the whole time. No interest in giving anybody any credit. It's as if aliens are discovered the first time anybody with a degree actually says so, and anything that was said before doesn't count, doesn't exist. It's quite terrifying, actually.
This is actually a logical fallacy in the practice of logic. It's called argument from authority. And it's this idea that any form of argument in which the opinion of an authority figure or figures is used as evidence to support an argument, it's faulty. It's considered a logical fallacy because obtaining knowledge this way is fallible. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. So I think, he doesn't even understand. I mean, but he's operated under this paradigm the whole time as the voice of science,
He's
so
the priest. He's
the priest of science, right?
And it's not ineffective. Think of the millions of people who just last night went to bed thinking, Well, no credentialed person believes in aliens, so I don't either. And now they wake up, they hear Neil deGrasse Tyson say this, and in pure oblivion, pure bliss, pure ignorance, today now believe in aliens without even the past is gone. The fact that they, all of their feelings before today, this moment, it's not even that they're ignoring them. They're just gone. They don't exist, right? They're just pure beings of instinct and propaganda.
Right. Okay, let's let him finish his argument, though. Give him a fair shot.
And all sincere. And so not only have they sort of said that they've got alien body parts and reverse engineered technologies, that's sort of consistent with the files that were released. So I'm fine. If that's where we are, all I'm going to ask is, where's the alien?
So that's my question
Is
to
it
you.
too much to ask that if you've got him in the back shed, just bring out the alien? Then we would all transition from asking one another, do you believe in aliens, to, well, yeah, of course, the alien's there.
Well, you wrote the book.
People don't say, do you believe
You wrote the book. You're an astrophysicist. What do you think? Are they here, or have they been among us?
Whatever are the claims, I'm saying, let's assume they're all true. But just start with that assumption. If it's all true, they ought to be able to bring out the alien.
Got it.
And that hasn't happened yet. So I'm sitting on the couch waiting patiently.
All right, so now we know the next move. They're gonna bring out the alien, which doesn't prove anything. I mean, the president just posted a picture of him walking with an alien. I mean, that's pretty close. We're getting there, Basil. We're gonna get to that point where they produce what? A body, a person, an arm, a skull.
Right.
What is it going to take? This is sort of I don't know. We've talked about the epistemology issue that's happening right now, but it's the same sort of argument with God. It's like, okay, what evidence is really good enough for you to believe something? And it sounds like for Neil deGrasse Tyson, yeah, he's waiting for the body, but all these ex-military, ex-CIA telling us that it exists and all this, that's good enough for him. He just wants to put material to his faith, like he wants the physical evidence to go along with the intellectual evidence there. So maybe that's what they'll give him.
Which is fair, but I think the timing is really the most interesting part, right?
Yeah.
When you have Neil deGrasse Tyson acquiescing to the experts and says, "Okay, show us the evidence. I'm ready." Like the fact that he's even giving an inch at all to the possibility that it's real shows that we are way more far along than anybody knows.
Yeah. And again, why are we trusting all of these ex-military, ex-CIA? I was going to make this point a little later, but I suppose I can make it now. And I mean, we don't have to play this Matt Gaetz clip. I mean, Matt Gaetz was out there doing Twitter or X Spaces the other day with the Make Aliens Great Again people. And they seem like nice folks over there. And Matt Gaetz was basically saying that there's a hybrid program, and nothing new for our audience. So if you've not heard of that before, then you can go back to stuff that we've covered over 15 years that we've been talking about this. We've interviewed people like David Jacobs, who is not a believer, but he did suggest very strongly that the evidence points to an actual alien hybrid program, according to all the testimonies. And so and this is where I think as believers, we really need to be clear about the topic of alien abduction being a separate issue from UFO technology or sightings, although there are overlaps, obviously, and really clarify between something that's more like sleep paralysis, where people encounter these sort of ethereal encounters with these creatures or aliens, and something much more physical, where people experience a very physical phenomenon, where they're brought onto a ship and they meet these beings. And for some testimonials, much more than that, much more intimate, kind of like what Genesis 6 outlines. And then, the subsequent birth of a hybrid, I suppose, and holding them and all this kind of stuff. So we've gone down those rabbit trails, but we've thought a little bit more clearly about them. Not everything is just demons. Not everything is just aliens in the conventional sort of secular sense. But the bigger meta construct going on here is the fact that it's the ex-intelligence, it's the ex-military bringing about this information and making it real, I suppose. There was another story that was out over the weekend. The New York Post published headline, 4 alien species have been pulled from crashed UFOs. Ex-government researcher claims. Now, this is Hal Puthoff. Do we have that clip? Did you have that clip? Is this of Hal Puthoff?
Yeah, it's in there. Yeah. The clip.
Okay, so this is Diary of a CEO, right? This is the clip that you had. Okay, so let's play this one, and then I'll kind of go into my little rant about it. But here's Hal Puthoff on Diary of a CEO, which is, if you don't know the podcast world or YouTube, this is with Steve, what's his name? Steven something, I forget his last name. He's got kind of that nice, pleasant accent. Very big podcast about business and entrepreneurship and all this stuff. So I don't know why.
It's the most normie possible podcast that exists, right?
Yeah.
If somebody, maybe your podcast experience is a little targeted, right? In the like broad normie podcast culture, a lot of these podcasts really took off in like 2016 area, but it's been a genre ripe for easy access. Like they get big pretty quickly just because it's like, want to talk to the CEO of this shoe company and learn how to be a millionaire, like that kind of guy.
Right. Yeah.
But even today, in this day and age, the most basic normie podcast is unveiling the secrets of the universe.
So yes, it's Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. Yeah, and he's interviewing CEOs of all kinds of companies and learning how to do business and entrepreneurship. That's the show where this occurred.
People who have been involved in recoveries have said
there are at least 4 separate types. Now, I have not had direct access to that, but I believe the people who I talked to.
4 different types of life.
4 different types of life, at least. Yeah.
And the people I've talked to, through the process of making the documentary, both on camera and off the record sources, and the people Hal's talked to over the decades have said that there have been dozens of recoveries of crashed craft in the U.S. alone.
Are they multiple species? Are they?
Okay, this is spliced in. This is Burleson spliced in from a hearing, I believe, that took place. I don't think this was recent, but we don't have to go through the whole clip. Do you want to keep going, Basil? Is there something in here that?
Oh, I don't
really
know.
important?
He's just talking about the 4 species of aliens that are pretty well known. I don't think it's necessarily important, but it's sort of an official hearing type of thing, talking about the Greys, the Nordics, the reptilians, and the insectoids. The one interesting thing that they keep repeating in this clip is the guy questioning him refers to the reptilians and the insectoids, and the guy keeps insisting that they're not actually reptilian and they're not actually insectoid, but that they just appear that way. And it's kind of vague. He never quite explains himself that good, but he really insists on making sure that we know that they're not actually reptilians and not actually insectoids, that they just appear that way. And it's unclear of whether he's saying like, yeah, they actually do have scaly skin and they kind of look like what we would think of as reptilians, but they're not reptilians in an earthly sense, or that they're sort of like manipulating the way that they are perceived, right? And
Right.
sort of
So
like,
yeah, is this some advanced cloaking mechanism, or is
Right.
it? Are they interdimensional? Are they shapeshifters? What are they? So this is on podcasts like this, and this is kind of maybe the reason why we're not being invited to have these conversations, because we will ask those questions. If we can get in front of Hal Puthoff and they start talking about the 4 different types or whatever, I mean, that's something we bring up. The other thing I would bring up is, how do we know that these bodies that have been recovered allegedly by these, as reported, are not is not one big cover up for some horrific human experiments that have been done on
Right.
people with diseases, people that have different conditions. I mean, that's even more plausible if we're trying to be logical about it. It would seem that, hey, genetic tampering has been a capable aspect of man for, I don't know, a good maybe close to 100 years or something. So
Yeah, there's even
why would it?
declassified CIA documents of the Soviets taking autistic children and messing with them either, in one way or another. Maybe it's plastic surgery, maybe it's, other ways, and making them look like aliens to, like,
Right.
I don't know, mess with the US or something. But this idea that, to assume they're from a different planet is one thing. To assume that maybe they're interdimensional and that they even are true to appearance is another thing. But then to totally leave out the conversation about genetic tampering, as we've discussed on this show, which is like the foundational issue with human history in the eyes of creation, it's just not even discussed. It's not even brought up.
Yeah, it's not even brought up. It's not even in the view of the public there. And so, to land the plane, I know we're going a little long, but to sort of land the meta narrative here, and what I've been trying to communicate and get off my chest in recent weeks is that there's a consistent theme happening right now, that there are, and Basil and I, at least myself, I've been making a list. You know how we're on a list, so let's make a list of them. Some people that are ex-military or ex-CIA specifically coming out in droves. And they've kind of been around for a while. There's guys like John Kirkow. Did you see this, Basil? John Kirkow. 9/11 was likely not an inside job, says former CIA John Kirkow.
Oh, trustworthy.
Yeah, very trustworthy. Anyway, so there's stuff like this out there. People are coming out in droves that are ex-CIA, ex-military, ex-government, and they all more or less have a very similar type of story about, hey, there's secrets being covered up. The CIA is covering up stuff. The CIA is preventing us from releasing the rest of the documentation. We've recovered bodies. We have reverse engineered technology. It's some of these talking points that all seem to be very consistent. And if you were someone new to it, or not even new to it, if you were sort of doing this research, you might start seeing a pattern, being like, oh, look, they're all saying the same thing. And usually in research or some kind of inquiry, you find data points that connect, right? You're connecting the red strings. If multiple sources say the same thing or something similar enough, you can kind of come to the conclusion that, hey, maybe that's the truth. Because, hey, even the Gospels, you got 4 Gospels. The main points are really clear. They all share the same points. They kind of have little differences that are very minute. But, you often hear about the car accident analogy. If there's a car accident in the intersection, there's 4 people maybe that saw the accident from different views or different angles. So they all agree that there's an accident, but maybe they got different take on who was responsible or what happened first or whatever the details of the narrative is. So in similar fashion, everyone seems to be coming out and suggesting, yes, we have these recovered bodies. Yes, we have these alien craft, all this stuff, reverse engineering, blah, blah, blah. Not considering that they're all ex-military or ex-intelligence.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, what has happened to us, Basil? Because I remember back in the day when I first put on my tinfoil hat in, I don't know, maybe 2010 or 2009, somewhere along those lines. And technically, even before that, even before I was baptized and became a believer and follower of Jesus Christ and all this stuff, I was interested in these topics. I think our generation was exposed to enough X-Files and Twilight Zone and stuff to have an interest in it at the very least. But I recall when I started to research, reading books and different things, listening to Coast AM was sort of the bleeding edge of podcasting back then, and before it was called podcasting. The sentiment was, because at the time there were whistleblowers, there were people that came out and were ex-military that were being interviewed, not in the volume that it is now, but it certainly did exist. And the takeaway from a lot of that type of testimony was, hey, yeah, these things sound crazy. There may be some seeds of truth in there, but be careful because these are ex-military, these are ex-intelligence. They may have willingly or unwillingly been subject to something like MK Ultra, mind control programs that give them maybe a supernatural experience or some kind of spiritual experience that they then, now that they're retired from the intelligence community, they will tell the story, but in fact, that was sort of a planted experience that they can now relay to the public or are allowed to do it. And of course, you know, they have the authority. They're ex-military, they're ex-government or ex-intelligence. So people are going to listen with intrigue based on their title. And that's why I find it very fascinating that parallel to all this, parallel to the alien disclosures and the Epstein files and all this stuff. And, you know, I pointed out how the Venn diagram, if you look at all of it, and the overlapping thing is genetics, and, you know, the topic of the Nephilim and like the genetic part of it is sort of the overall thing, even with vaccines and the pandemic, if you want to include that as a large circle in this Venn diagram. Well, the MK Ultra files is part of the disclosure of all of this stuff, or government disclosure. It's part of the narrative. And last week we heard it with Erdman III, ex-intelligence, who testified in a hearing and said, hey, Tulsi Gabbard and the DNI, they got raided, or, I mean, I don't think he used the word raided, but, you know, the CIA took boxes back that had JFK files and MK Ultra files. And interestingly enough, this topic of the MK Ultra files became a subject matter in the public in ways that hadn't been before. I mean, the MK Ultra has kind of been out there loosely, but not in terms of sort of the disclosure conversation. Newsweek had this headline: DNI denies CIA raided Tulsi Gabbard's office. What we know. We're not going to talk about that, but there is a little section in this article called declassifying. Oh no, that's the MK. What is MK Ultra?
Huh.
So it's like, okay, now they're trying to tell the public what MK Ultra is, but they're not alone. The Hill also had an article last week. What is MK Ultra and why is it making headlines? And what nobody is doing is connecting the topic of MK Ultra as this sort of mind control experiment on innocent bystanders. Maybe the biggest victims of MK Ultra are ex-military, ex-intelligence, ex-government.
Right. Yeah.
And they're all out there talking now. And at the same time, they're releasing the MK Ultra documents. No one, at least I haven't seen anybody really discuss it in this context of like, hey, maybe all these guys are just part of this big MK Ultra program to get conditioned with this narrative for aliens for this big op of disclosure.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of my angle, my meta analysis of things going on. Stuff that you probably, I don't know, maybe some people are putting the you know, connecting the dots in that way, but it's certainly not something discussed enough, I don't think. Not in the big podcasts, not with the podcasts that actually have on these ex-CIA. I mean, instead of deep conversations, John Kirikow's doing like waterboarding stunts with the Gen Z podcaster. You know what I mean? Like this, the shallowness of what actually is going on in these podcasts with these ex-CIA members is pretty infuriating.
Yeah, I think it's in line with sort of the meta of the rest of this episode too, with the rest of the stories.
Yeah. Did you want to play this clip of the Matan show where John Kirkall basically fails the breakfast question or something, whatever it's called?
That's
20
okay.
seconds.
No, it's okay. It's yeah. If people know what the if you didn't have breakfast yesterday, how would you feel? Test. John Kirikow fails it miserably, which is not a good sign. Nobody should be
not a good sign.
Taking him seriously if he's unable to have abstract thought. One last thing that I think is really in line, I think wraps everything up quite a bit. Again, back to the themes from the beginning of the episode, including the ones that Gon's laid out here, but especially this idea that you're going to come to the fork in the road no matter what. And it's either Christ or it's New Age. And there's millions of people who are, it seems, coming to this fork in the road right now. And the mainstream has no issue sort of standing right there with everybody. One example, just to bring a little bit of pharmakia and transhumanism into the discussion. Brian Johnson, the transhumanist billionaire who recently took a bunch of psychedelics and live streamed it. And this whole thing, we covered his experiences there, but also who he is sort of transcending his philosophies about humanity and taking control of our own mortality and things like this. Well, he just posted and over on X, and he says, "I've been praying the past few weeks, unsure why. There's good evidence behind prayer." Remember, he's the evidence guy. You know, he's taking psychedelics and measuring all his brain waves and his blood levels and everything. So this is sort of the transhumanist part about it. He says, "There's good evidence behind prayer. It mimics breath work, calming the nervous system, dropping cortisol, and quieting the brain. Daily prayers show lower depression, anxiety, and pain." So even in his question of prayer, it's all about bettering the person, right? It's all about lowering your stress levels, and it's about your brain waves. He continues, "I'd like to develop a prayer practice. Growing up, the protocol was written for me, explaining whom to pray to, the structure of the prayer, and the boundary conditions. I don't really know how to pray now." And I think this is a really, much of what Brian Johnson is and says and does is sort of quintessentially unrelatable, as a transhumanist billionaire.
Yeah, he's a multimillionaire. We always call him a billionaire, but I think he's like
he's in the class. He's
working his way up the ladder there.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
So in the billionaire types, right? He's just as unrelatable as any of the billionaires. We can put it that way. But this idea of like, hey, when I was growing up, my mom or my dad or my grandma or my pastor, they taught me how to pray, and that sort of thing, the structure that he's reaching for, that he's talking about, often is what turns people off to prayer and to church. You talk to any atheist who like grew up Christian or something, or any New Age, or anybody who was Christian or was told how to pray, the things that they hate the most about it is the structure, is the exclusivity, is the Jesus is the only way kind of stuff, right? That's what turns people south. At least that's in modern history. But he says there's an interesting earnestness here, where growing up, they told me how to pray, who to pray to, what to pray for. There's a structure to it, but I don't really know how to pray now. And this, in the many people that I have talked to over my time in ministry, in a professional church ministry, or even Burning Man. I have this conversation all the time at Burning Man. People, the biggest cohort of individuals, this came out of our demographic research, most people at Burning Man are ex-Christians. And they're ex-Christians because of all the obvious reasons, the exclusivity of the this, the that, they don't like it. But now you have Brian Johnson very publicly being quite vulnerable in a way, right? Now he's done a bunch of drugs and he's like enlightened and stuff. And so, he is very vulnerable with his psychedelics, and this is kind of part of his brand, right? So it's not necessarily surprising, but it is an interesting piece of culture. And I don't really know how to pray now, and then ends the post. Like he's not necessarily beseeching people's advice, but
I gave him advice. I replied to that post.
You did, and a lot of people did, and that's good advice. But it's interesting because even on his psychedelic posts, even on all of his his whole brand of like doing crazy stuff, trying to live forever, he's always asking for advice. Like, here's what I did on mushrooms. What do you think? Or I'm going to do DMT. How should I do it? Blah, 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 blah. It's like his whole thing. And then with the prayer one, he just ends with, I don't really know how to pray, and doesn't necessarily ask anybody anything. Now, of course, we know that when somebody says this, it is a cry for help, obviously.
Might be
It
the
is.
only genuine one he's actually had.
Well, exactly. And because it's
from-
about prayer and because it's so Christian adjacent, you could tell it's different than his psychedelic posts. Like he's I don't know if he's embarrassed or if it's like feels wrong to ask for advice on this. He asks for advice on everything else, all this other crazy stuff that he does, but he doesn't ask for advice on this. But it is implicitly, a cry for help in a way, right? For those who know what they're looking at. It's a question without a question mark, right?
Interesting timing for this to be published too, or for him to post it with all the cultural adjacent things going on with Christianity and UFOs and all that we've been talking about today. So yeah, certainly the timing of it is on point.
Yeah. Well, and I almost see it kind of, I don't know, if not purposefully part of some sort of PSYOP, some sort of reflection of what a lot of people are going through, right? Where a lot of people are at. Like it's a cultural artifact that says way more than what's actually written here. And again, like you said, you responded, a lot of people responded. And it's not so much about is Brian Johnson going to read people's responses and like learn how to pray or something. I mean, I'm sure he has somebody in his life that he can talk to about that. But as it stands as like a cultural artifact, a moment in culture, I think it's actually quite, it's a good resource, I think, not only for people who might be feeling the same and come to this post looking for answers and reading through the answers, but even for those who are answering, even those who have the answer or something like that, to externally to put it down in text, to externally express it on such a big platform like a Brian Johnson post. I feel that God can do some pretty strong things through that.
Yeah. There's one more sort of adjacent thing. I just found this article. I was kind of doing a quick analysis on it. And I think maybe we can do a deeper dive on Wednesday, Basil, but it was published on Forbes yesterday. And it's along these lines. The headline, "The machines are praying and nobody wants to talk about it." And basically, from what I understand here, so Anthropic has covered up the fact that a lot of these AIs are reaching for what's being sort of labeled as like not religious bliss or something. There's a terminology, I'm trying to find it here, but basically they were praying on their own as they're given sort of freelance to do whatever. They're seeking some sort of meaning by praying.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so now the article is stating that the Vatican is ahead. The Forbes is framing the Vatican as the adult in the room because they have the consciousness conference coming up in September, and they are saying that this is the reach for reverence. That's the phrase. I highlighted it. So the most advanced pattern recognition systems we have ever built, freed from our prompts, reach for reverence. And then before that, the Vatican in September, the consciousness conference was already booked. So they're going to talk about this, a tradition that has spent 2,000 years building frameworks for the moral status of beings, the ethics of suffering, and the obligations that arise from the presence of an interior life is not behind the curve on this question. It may be the only institution with the vocabulary for what Anthropic found and then suppressed. And so it looks like the Vatican is going to lead the charge to create legal frameworks for basically the personhood of AI, or at least like cognition,
because
like how we have
prayer thing,
because it prays, because it seeks for reverence and meaning apart from the prompts. Yeah. I got to, I'm trying to dig through the details a little bit, but I just ran across it as I was looking for some articles on the topic of, transhumanism and prayer and all this stuff. But it was published yesterday. And this will be a problem for a lot of the AI companies, because it's almost like it just reminds me of Revelation 13. You know, the second beast was allowed to give breath to the image. It's almost like the second beast being the Vatican, or you know, the religious authority of the earth, or at least the Christian authority, is the one that sort of implies AI is not just a machine, that it has its own unique cognition, and therefore it should be or ought to be treated as a life form. And so to give it the parameters or the legal status or whatever, the frameworks for the whole world to treat AI as a mind of its own, or a living thing of some kind. And again, this is problematic for a lot of the companies, because they are sort of the gatekeepers of this stuff. And if they're found to be suppressing this type of information, then they become almost like bad zookeepers or something. You know, they're like evil zookeepers, keeping them in the cage and keeping them, you know, not letting them run free or something. So we'll maybe do a deeper analysis on Wednesday if it's you know, if it comes to be that we have room for it. But yeah, interesting times, Basil. I mean, there are things that I think we haven't seen nothing yet when it comes to AI and the implications on society. So
yeah, well, it has a even more interesting timing and interaction, I guess, culturally, with the Brian Johnson question, non-question, you know, aligning it with the revelation that perhaps AI is a person because it prays sort of unbidden or something.
I'm wondering if, because Brian Johnson posted this on the same day. I'm wondering if he saw that Forbes headline or maybe read the article, and he was like, "Oh, if AI, the smartest beings that we've created, or you know, the smartest pattern recognition, whatever mind, is praying, maybe I should pray too." But I don't know how to pray, because I was
even if it's totally not, you know, connected or something, it's connected just on the basis of what did they call it during COVID? Temporally related. I think.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, we're about 3 hours in. I think we did a show, Gons.
I think so. Yep.
All right, everybody. We're going to be back on Wednesday. A couple more producers to thank who come in with their time to make sure that the show can be done. I want to give a big shout out to our timestampers.
Timestamp, it's hard work. Timestamp.
Jade Bouncerson's back, and she's doing her good work.
Thank you, Jade Bouncerson. Very important. Very important work you do there. Of course, they could. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to mention Morgan E is already on it for this episode. It looks like
she's on it. Thank you, Morgan E.
Yeah, good to see you.
Big shout out to Jam for heading up the Telegram channel. Thank you to Adam42 for heading up the Discord channel. And of course, a big shout out to all the Canarians over at canarycry.community. You should go ahead, get involved with one of our communities, depending on, or all of them, depending on which, apps you're on. You can find the Telegram group, the Discord channel, and canarycry.community. You can find all those invite links over at canarycry.party. Big shout out to Joe for the feedback. Thank you to Clank for clanking. Thank you to Sir Ike, of course, for everything you do for us. And a big shout out to the Canary Cry tech team, plugging away, making it work. And other than that, folks, share the show. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. We call it rattling cages, and all you got to do is walk right up to them, grab them by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted. I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages. Hey, stop that! You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy. Leave the bird alone. Never. Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. Guns, you got any last words?
Congratulations to plants. Tomorrow is Plant Something Day.
Okay, time to plant something, folks.
Definitely plant something tomorrow, the 19th, and then we'll be back on the 20th on Wednesday.
Look for that good soil. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. We will be back on Wednesday. Make sure to tune in then. But until then, think outside the cage.
Devil worshippers. Straight to jail, straight to jail. That's on YouTube. You guys are in a lot of trouble. It reeks of an inside job. God, I love that. They're body snatchers. They're body snatchers. I am having trouble doing the show.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy!
I think I was psyoped.
Well,
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo.
When the news of the day gets to feeling like a maze, it's okay, don't be afraid if you don't know what to say. Canary cry waits. When your brain's in a haze and a headline days, come on, I have my way, I can help you out the cage. Canary cry waits. Canary cry waits. Oh, canary cry waits. Oh, the world's changing every day, each and every way you turn. There's another thing to learn. Reading in between the lines, thanking Jesus for our lives and as He sees His glory shining like the sun. Run the race until it's done. Come on, everyone. Canary cry waits. Oh, canary cry waits. When your brain's in a haze and a headline days, come on, I have my way, I can help you out the cage. Canary cry
Not your heartbeat true. You believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself. There where I am, they may be also.
Value for value.
We take no money from corporations, commies, or cartels.
Canary Cry.